Vanessa grabbed the crystal pitcher and tilted it slowly, deliberately, watching the cold milk stream down onto 7-year-old Amara's braids. The little girl didn't scream. She didn't run. She just knelt there on the cold kitchen floor, clutching her baby brother against her chest, her voice breaking as she whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just wanted my brother to have a full stomach." Vanessa's red lips curled into a smile. She was about to pour more when the kitchen door slammed open. Marcus Washington, the man who owned this $12 million brownstone, stood frozen in the doorway. His eyes locked onto his daughter, soaked and shivering, and something inside him cracked. "Stop!" The word exploded from his chest like thunder. But what happened next would expose secrets so dark, so calculated that this family would never be the same again. Before we continue, I invite you to subscribe to my channel and follow this story until the very end. Leave a comment telling me which city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Now let us begin. The milk was still dripping from Amara's chin when Marcus crossed the kitchen in 3 long strides. His Italian leather shoes splashed through the white puddle spreading across the marble floor. He didn't care. He didn't notice. All he saw was his daughter, his baby girl, kneeling in that mess like she was praying for forgiveness she didn't need. "Daddy." Her voice cracked on the word. Marcus grabbed a dish towel from the counter and dropped to his knees beside her. His hands were shaking as he wiped the milk from her face, from her hair, from those 2 puff braids that Denise used to style every Sunday morning before church. What happened here? He kept his voice soft, but his eyes cut toward Vanessa like broken glass. "What did you do to my daughter?" Vanessa set the pitcher on the counter. She moved slowly, deliberately, like a woman who had already rehearsed this scene in her mind. "Your daughter," she said, and something cold slithered beneath her sweet tone, "stole from me." "Stole what?" "My organic milk, the high-grade one I use for my skin treatments, $47 a bottle." She crossed her arms over her red designer dress. "I caught her sneaking it out of the refrigerator at 5 this morning. She's been doing it for weeks." Marcus looked down at Amara. The girl had stopped crying. She sat perfectly still, her arms wrapped around baby Isaiah, who was whimpering against her chest. Her yellow dress, the one he'd bought her for her 6th birthday at that Macy's on 34th Street, was soaked through and clinging to her small frame. "Amara?" He lifted her chin gently with one finger. "Look at Daddy. Tell me what happened." The girl's eyes darted toward Vanessa, then back to the floor. "I took the milk," she whispered. "I'm sorry." "Why?" "Because..." Her bottom lip trembled. "Because Isaiah was crying. He was so hungry, Daddy. The formula was empty and I didn't know what else to do. I just wanted him to have a full stomach. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't be mad." Marcus felt something crack in his chest. Not break, crack, like ice on a frozen river just before the whole thing gives way. He turned to Vanessa. "The formula was empty." She waved her hand dismissively. "I was going to buy more today." "Today?" His voice rose before he could stop it. "My son is 10 months old. He needs to eat every few hours. You know that." "Babies are resilient. He would have been fine until I got to the store." "Fine?" Marcus stood up, still holding the wet dish towel. "You think letting an infant go hungry is fine?" Vanessa's expression shifted. The warmth drained from her face, replaced by something harder. Something he had glimpsed before, but never wanted to see clearly. "Don't raise your voice at me, Marcus. I'm not one of your employees. And my children are not your property to neglect." The word hung in the air between them. Neglect. He hadn't meant to say it, hadn't meant to accuse her of something so serious. But now that it was out, he couldn't take it back. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "Neglect?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I gave up my modeling career to stay home with your children. I cook for them, I clean for them, I take them to school and pick them up and read them stories at night. And the one time I try to discipline your daughter for stealing, you accuse me of neglect. Pouring milk on a child's head isn't discipline. It's a consequence. Actions have consequences, Marcus. That's a lesson she needs to learn." Vanessa stepped closer, lowering her voice to that intimate whisper she used when she wanted something. "Look, I know I lost my temper. I'm sorry, but you have to understand how frustrating it is. That girl fights me on everything. She refuses to eat what I cook. She hides food in her room. She acts like I'm the enemy." Marcus glanced at Amara. The girl had pressed herself against the wall, Isaiah clutched tight against her chest. Her eyes were fixed on the floor, but her shoulders were shaking. "She's 7 years old," he said quietly. "She just lost her mother." "I know, and I'm trying to help her heal. But she won't let me in." Vanessa reached out and touched his arm. Her fingers were cold. "We need to be a united front. If you undermine me every time I try to establish boundaries, she'll never respect either of us." Marcus looked at that hand on his arm, looked at his wife's beautiful face, carefully arranged into an expression of wounded sincerity, looked at the milk still dripping down his daughter's cheeks. He wanted to believe her. God help him, he wanted to believe her. Because if she was lying, if something darker was happening in this house, then he had failed Denise. He had failed his children. He had failed everyone he was supposed to protect. "Give me the towel, cuz," he said finally. "Go get Amara some dry clothes. I'll clean this up." Vanessa smiled, that perfect smile that had first caught his attention at a charity gala 18 months ago. "Thank you for understanding," she said. "I promise it won't happen again." She kissed his cheek and walked out of the kitchen, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor like the ticking of a clock. Marcus turned back to his children. Amara was still pressed against the wall, still holding Isaiah, still trembling. She looked so small, so fragile, so much like Denise in those final days at the hospital when she had known she was dying and couldn't do anything to stop it. He knelt down in front of his daughter. "Come here, baby girl." She didn't move. "It's okay. I'm not mad at you." Still nothing. "Amara, please, look at Daddy." Slowly, so slowly, she lifted her eyes. And what Marcus saw in them made his blood run cold. Fear. Not the ordinary fear of a child who had been caught doing something wrong. Something deeper. Something that had been growing for a long time, taking root in the dark corners of her heart where no adult had thought to look. "I'll be good," she whispered. "I promise, I'll be good." Marcus pulled her into his arms, Isaiah and all, and held them both against his chest. He could feel his daughter's heart racing, could feel his son's tiny fingers gripping his shirt, could feel the weight of everything he had missed pressing down on him like a stone. "You are good," he said into her hair. "You are so good, baby. Don't ever forget that." But even as he said the words, he knew they weren't enough. Something was wrong in this house, and he was only just beginning to see it. Vanessa returned with dry clothes for Amara, a plain white t-shirt and gray sweatpants. Nothing special, nothing with color or personality, just functional fabric. "Here." She held out the clothes without warmth. "Get changed, then go to your room." Amara took the clothes and disappeared down the hallway without a word. Marcus watched her go. "Why did you send her to her room? She needs time to think about what she did." What she did was try to feed her hungry brother. Vanessa sighed, the sound of a woman dealing with an unreasonable man. "Marcus, we've been over this. The formula wasn't actually empty. There was half a can in the pantry. She was too lazy to look for it." "Half a can?" "Yes, I checked after she took my milk. It was right there on the second shelf. She didn't even try to find it." She shook her head with practiced disappointment. "That's what I mean about manipulation. She wanted to make me look bad. She wanted you to come home and see exactly what you saw." Marcus frowned. It made a certain kind of sense. Amara had been difficult since Denise's death. Withdrawn, resentful of Vanessa, quick to tears and slow to trust. Maybe she was acting out. Maybe she was testing boundaries. But the fear in her eyes, the way she had flinched when Vanessa came into the room, that wasn't manipulation. "I'll talk to her," he said. "Good. And Marcus..." Vanessa touched his arm again, softer this time. "I know I'm not her mother. I know I can never replace Denise. But I'm trying. I really am. Just give me a chance. Give us a chance." He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Vanessa smiled and headed toward the stairs. "I'll check on Isaiah. Make sure he's eating properly. You should shower and change. You have that dinner with the Hendersons at 7. Marcus had forgotten about the dinner. Another networking event. Another room full of wealthy strangers making small talk over expensive wine. Another evening away from his children. Maybe I should cancel. Don't be silly. This is important for business. She paused at the bottom of the stairs, looking back at him with what seemed like genuine concern. "I've got everything under control here. Focus on work. That's what you're good at." She climbed the stairs and disappeared. Marcus stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the faint smell of sour milk. He should mop the floor. He should check on Amara. He should do 100 things. Instead, he walked to the refrigerator and opened it. The top shelf was full of Vanessa's organic products, expensive milks and creams and specialty items he didn't recognize. Below that, the adult food, steaks, vegetables, gourmet cheeses. On the bottom shelf where the children's food should have been, there was almost nothing. One yogurt cup, a small container of applesauce, a bottle with barely an inch of formula at the bottom. Marcus stared at that shelf for a long time. Half a can in the pantry, Vanessa had said. He opened the pantry door and searched. Behind the organic quinoa and the specialty pasta and the imported olive oil, he found a single can of baby formula. It was empty. He picked it up and turned it over in his hands. The expiration date was 3 weeks ago. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. Henderson dinner confirmed for 7 p.m. Car will pick you up at 6:30. Marcus put the empty can back in the pantry exactly where he had found it. He closed the refrigerator. He walked upstairs to shower and change for his dinner. But he didn't forget what he had seen. The dinner went late. It always did with the Hendersons. By the time Marcus got home, the house was dark and quiet. Vanessa was already in bed, or pretending to be. The children's door was closed. He stood in the hallway for a moment listening. Faint sounds from behind the door. Isaiah fussing. Amara's voice soft and soothing. "Shh, baby brother. It's okay. Go back to sleep. Mara's here." Marcus pushed open the door. Amara was sitting on the floor next to Isaiah's crib, reaching through the bars to pat his belly. She jumped when she saw her father, guilt flooding her face. "Daddy, I'm sorry. He was crying and It's okay." Marcus crossed the room and knelt beside her. "You're taking care of him. That's nothing to apologize for." Isaiah was still fussing, his tiny fists waving in the air. Marcus reached into the crib and picked him up. The boy was so light, so small. When had he last held his son like this? "Is he hungry?" Marcus asked. Amara nodded slowly. "He's always hungry." "Always?" She bit her lip, that familiar look of fear crossing her face. "I'm not supposed to say." "Not supposed to say what?" "Nothing." She shook her head quickly. "Nothing. He's fine. Everything's fine." But everything wasn't fine. Marcus could see that now. Could see it in the way Amara held herself, shoulders hunched, body tense, ready to run or hide at any moment. Could see it in the way Isaiah's cheeks weren't as round as they should be, the way his eyes tracked movement with the wariness of a much older child. "Amara?" He sat down on the floor, Isaiah cradled against his chest. "I need you to tell me the truth. Is something happening when Daddy's not home? Is someone hurting you?" The girl's eyes went wide. She glanced toward the door, then back at her father. "I can't say." "Why not?" "Because if I say something bad will happen." Marcus felt ice spreading through his veins. "What do you mean? What bad thing?" She said. Amara's voice dropped to a whisper. "She said if I tell you anything, Isaiah won't get milk anymore. She said she'll make sure he goes hungry and it will be my fault." The ice turned to fire. "Who said that, Vanessa?" Amara started to cry. Silent tears rolling down her cheeks, her small body shaking with the effort of keeping quiet. "I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm sorry. Please don't tell her I said anything. Please. I don't want Isaiah to be hungry because of me." Marcus pulled her into his arm, holding both children against his chest. Isaiah had stopped fussing. Amara was crying into his shirt, and Marcus was trying to breathe through the rage building in his chest. "Listen to me." He kept his voice steady, even though everything inside him was screaming. "Nothing bad is going to happen to Isaiah. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. I'm going to make sure you're both safe. Do you understand?" Amara didn't answer. She just cried harder. Marcus held her until she fell asleep. Then he carried her to her bed, tucked the blankets around her, and kissed her forehead. "I'm going to fix this," he whispered. "I promise." He checked on Isaiah, gave him a bottle of water since there was no formula, and stood in the doorway for a long time watching his children sleep. Then he walked downstairs to his office, closed the door, and opened his laptop. He had work to do. The next morning, Marcus didn't go to the office. He told Vanessa he had a late meeting that he would work from home until noon. She seemed pleased, assuming he wanted to spend time with her. Instead, he waited until she took the children to school, then he made a phone call. "Gwendolyn Carter speaking." Miss Gwen was the woman who lived across the hall. A retired nurse in her late 60s, she had been in the building longer than anyone. She had known Denise since childhood, had been at their wedding, had brought peach cobbler to the hospital the night Isaiah was born. "Miss Gwen, it's Marcus Washington." "Marcus?" Her voice warmed immediately. "Lord, it's been too long. How are those babies?" "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. Do you have a few minutes?" "For you always. Come on over. I just made coffee." 5 minutes later, Marcus was sitting in Miss Gwen's living room, a cup of coffee growing cold in his hands. The apartment smelled like cinnamon and lavender, like comfort and safety, nothing like the cold perfection of his own home. Now, Miss Gwen settled into her armchair, her reading glasses perched on her nose. What's troubling you, son, and don't tell me nothing. I can see it all over your face. Marcus hesitated. He had come here for information, but now that he was sitting across from this woman who had known Denise, who had watched him grow from a young man into whatever he was now, the words stuck in his throat. Have you seen Amara lately? He asked finally. Miss Gwen's expression shifted. Something knowing passed through her eyes. I have. And I'm worried about that child, Marcus. I've been worried for a while. His heart clenched. Why? What have you seen? Miss Gwen set down her coffee cup. She folded her hands in her lap the way she did when she had something difficult to say. About 2 weeks ago, that little girl knocked on my door. It was after dinner time, almost 7 o'clock. She had Isaiah in that old stroller, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Marcus leaned forward. What did she want? Food? The word fell heavily between them. She asked if I had any leftover bread, said her baby brother was hungry. Miss Gwen's voice caught. I gave her everything I had, biscuits, some grits, a carton of milk, and I watched that child walk back to your apartment carrying those groceries like they were made of gold. Marcus couldn't speak. That wasn't the first time either, Miss Gwen continued. She's been coming by for weeks, never asks for herself, always says it's for Isaiah. But I see her, Marcus. I see how thin she's getting. I see the dark circles under her eyes. I see the way she jumps at every sound. Why didn't you tell me? I tried. Miss Gwen's voice sharpened. I caught you in the lobby 3 days ago. Told you your daughter was too thin. Told you she came to me asking for food. You said I must be mistaken. Marcus remembered. He had been on his phone rushing to a meeting, barely listening. I thought she was just being greedy, he said. That's what Vanessa told me. Miss Gwen's expression hardened at the name. That woman. What about her? I don't trust her, Marcus. Never have. There's something cold in her eyes. Something that doesn't match all those pretty smiles and sweet words. She leaned forward. Denise saw it too before she passed. She told me once near the end that she was worried. Said she had a bad feeling about what would happen to her babies after she was gone. Marcus felt like he had been punched in the chest. She never said anything to me. She didn't want to worry you. You had enough on your plate with the business and the medical bills. But she made me promise something. What? She made me promise to watch over those children, to keep an eye on them no matter what. Miss Gwen's eyes glistened. I've been trying, Marcus, but there's only so much I can do from across the hall. Those babies need their father. They need you to wake up and see what's happening in your own home. Marcus set down his coffee cup. His hands were shaking. I'm awake now, he said quietly. I'm awake. Come on. After leaving Miss Gwen's apartment, Marcus drove to Frederick Douglass Elementary. The school was a handsome brick building on 27th Street, its walls decorated with murals of famous Black Americans. Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King Jr., Mae Jemison, faces of triumph and perseverance watching over the children who passed through these halls. Marcus found the main office and asked to speak with Amara's teacher, Miss Lorraine Mitchell. The secretary led him to a small conference room, and a few minutes later, a woman in her mid-30s walked in. She had natural hair styled in twist-outs, warm brown skin, and patient eyes that had seen too much and forgiven even more. Mr. Washington? She shook his hand firmly. I was planning to call you today. You were... Please sit down. They settled into chairs across from each other. Lorraine folded her hands on the table, her expression serious. How much do you know about what's been happening with Amara? Not enough, Marcus admitted. That's why I'm here. Lorraine nodded slowly. Your daughter is one of the brightest students in my class. She was, anyway. These past few months I've watched her change. She used to raise her hand for every question. Now she sits in the back corner and doesn't speak unless spoken to. She used to play with the other children at recess. Now she sits alone writing in a little notebook she won't let anyone see. A notebook. A purple one. She carries it everywhere. Lorraine paused. But what concerns me most is the food situation. Marcus's throat tightened. What do you mean? Last week I caught Amara reaching for another student's leftover sandwich. When I asked her about it, she started crying. She said she wanted to bring it home for her baby brother because he was hungry. That's what Miss Gwen told me. Miss Gwen? A neighbor. Amara's been going to her for food, too. Lorraine's expression darkened. Mr. Washington, I've been teaching for 15 years. I know what a hungry child looks like, and I know the difference between a child who's picky and a child who's genuinely not getting enough to eat. What are you saying? I'm saying that Amara shows signs of food insecurity. She hoards snacks in her backpack. She eats like she doesn't know when her next meal is coming. She's lost weight since the beginning of the school year. Lorraine pulled a folder from her bag. I've been documenting everything. Dates, observations, concerns. I was going to contact Child Protective Services if things didn't improve. Marcus felt the room spin. CPS. I'm a mandated reporter, Mr. Washington. If I have reasonable suspicion that a child is being neglected or abused, I'm legally required to report it. She pushed the folder toward him. But I wanted to talk to you first. I wanted to give you a chance to explain. He opened the folder. Inside were pages of handwritten notes, dates and times, observations about Amara's behavior, a photocopy of a drawing the girl had made stick figures of a family, but the mother figure had been scribbled out with black crayon. I don't have an explanation, Marcus said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. Hollow. I've been working, traveling. I trusted my wife to take care of the children. Your wife? Lorraine's tone was carefully neutral. Have you noticed anything concerning about her behavior toward Amara? He thought about the milk, the empty formula can, the fear in his daughter's eyes. I'm starting to. Lorraine was quiet for a moment. Then she reached across the table and touched his hand. Mr. Washington, I'm going to tell you something that I probably shouldn't, but I think you need to hear it. Go ahead. About a month ago, your wife came to pick up Amara from school. They were walking to the car, and I happened to be watching from the window. I saw Vanessa grab Amara's arm, hard. She said something I couldn't hear, but Amara's whole body went stiff, like she was terrified. Marcus closed his eyes. I don't know what's happening in your home, Lorraine continued, but something is wrong, and those children need you to figure out what. He opened his eyes and looked at this woman, this teacher who cared more about his daughter than he had. Thank you, he said, for watching out for her, for not giving up. That child is special, Mr. Washington. She has a light in her. Don't let anyone put it out. No doubt. Marcus sat in his car outside the school for 20 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. Everything he had believed for the past year was crumbling around him. The perfect wife, the happy home, the fresh start after tragedy. All of it was a lie. He thought about Denise, about the video she had made in the hospital, the one he couldn't bring himself to watch more than once. Watch Amara's eyes, she had said. They will tell you everything she cannot say. He had watched his daughter's eyes last night. He had seen the fear, the exhaustion, the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, her father would finally understand. And then he had done nothing. He had gone to bed next to the woman who was hurting his children. Marcus pulled out his phone and made a call. David Okonkwo speaking. David, it's Marcus Washington. I need your help. David was his head of security, a former military intelligence officer who had served 2 tours in Afghanistan. If anyone could help him uncover the truth, it was David. What do you need, Mr. Washington? I need cameras installed in my home. Hidden cameras. In the kitchen, the living room, the children's playroom. I need to see what happens when I'm not there. There was a pause. May I ask why? I think my wife is hurting my children. I need proof. Another pause. Longer this time. I can have a team there tomorrow morning. When will the house be empty? Vanessa takes the children to school at 8. She goes to yoga at 9. She's usually gone until 11. We'll be in and out in 45 minutes. The cameras will transmit to an encrypted app on your phone. No one else will have access. Thank you, David. Mr. Washington. David's voice was heavy. I've worked for you for 7 years. I've never seen you ask for anything like this. Whatever you find, I hope it's not what you're expecting. So do I. He hung up and stared at the school building. Somewhere inside, his daughter was sitting in class trying to learn long division or state capitals or whatever second graders learned. Trying to be normal. Trying to survive. Hold on, baby girl, Marcus whispered. Daddy's coming. Well, fine. That evening, Marcus came home early. Vanessa was surprised, but pleased. She had made dinner, she said. Lamb chops with roasted vegetables. A nice bottle of wine. Marcus sat at the table with his family and pretended everything was normal. He watched Vanessa serve the food. Generous portions for him, a decent amount for herself. And for Amara, a small lamb chop and a handful of vegetables, barely enough for a bird. Eat your vegetables, Vanessa told the girl sweetly. They're good for you. Amara nodded and picked at her food. She didn't complain. She didn't ask for more. She just ate what she was given and kept her eyes down. Isaiah was in his high chair gumming a piece of bread that was too hard for him to actually eat. Vanessa hadn't bothered to cut it into smaller pieces. "How was school today?" Marcus asked his daughter. Amara glanced at Vanessa before answering. "Fine." "What did you learn?" Another glance. "Math?" "What kind of math?" "Subtraction." Vanessa laughed lightly. "She's not much of a talker, is she? I've been trying to get her to open up, but it's like pulling teeth." Marcus looked at his wife. Really looked at her. The perfect makeup, the designer clothes, the diamond earrings he had bought her for their 6-month anniversary. Everything about her was polished and beautiful and completely, utterly fake. "Maybe she just needs time," he said. "Maybe." Vanessa sipped her wine. "Or maybe she needs a firmer hand. Children need structure, Marcus. They need boundaries. Without discipline, they grow up entitled and soft." "She's 7. Old enough to know right from wrong." Vanessa smiled, but her eyes didn't match. "Don't worry, darling. I know what I'm doing. I raised my little sister after our mother died. I know how to handle children." Marcus hadn't known that about her. She had mentioned a sister once briefly, but never talked about her childhood. "What happened to your sister?" Something flickered in Vanessa's eyes. Something dark and quickly hidden. "She's fine. Lives in California now. We don't really talk." She stood up abruptly. "Who wants dessert? I made chocolate mousse." She walked to the kitchen without waiting for an answer. Marcus looked at Amara. The girl was staring at her plate, her small hands clenched in her lap. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. She nodded without looking up. "Amara, look at me." Slowly she raised her eyes, and in them Marcus saw everything. The fear, the hunger, the desperate wordless plea for someone to see what was happening. "It's going to be okay," he mouthed silently. For the first time in months, something like hope flickered in his daughter's face. "Okay." The cameras were installed the next morning. David's team was professional and efficient. 3 small devices, no bigger than shirt buttons, hidden in places Vanessa would never think to look. By the time she returned from yoga, there was no trace they had ever been there. That afternoon, Marcus sat in his office and opened the app on his phone. The feed from the kitchen showed Vanessa making lunch. She moved around the room with casual grace, humming to herself, completely unaware she was being watched. Amara was at the table doing homework. Isaiah was in his playpen chewing on a stuffed elephant. Nothing happened. Just an ordinary afternoon in an ordinary home. Marcus began to wonder if he had made a mistake. If his suspicions were just paranoia, grief-fueled delusions, the product of a guilty conscience. Then Vanessa turned to Amara. "I told you to finish that worksheet before lunch. Why isn't it done?" "I'm sorry, Don't make excuses." Vanessa's voice sharpened. I'm tired of your excuses. I'm tired of your attitude. I'm tired of cleaning up after you and your brother while your father works and never notices anything I do." Amara shrank in her chair. "I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix anything." Vanessa walked to the playpen and picked up Isaiah. The boy whimpered at the sudden movement. "You think I wanted this? You think I dreamed of spending my life taking care of another woman's children?" She was talking to the baby now, her voice rising with each word. "Your mother should have been more careful. Your mother should have taken better care of herself. But no, she had to go and die and leave me with all this mess." Marcus's hands were shaking. He wanted to reach through the screen and grab his wife by the throat. "Put the baby down," he whispered, even though she couldn't hear him. "Put him down." Vanessa laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. "Look at his face. He looks just like her. Every time I look at him, I see her. It makes me sick." She dropped Isaiah back into the playpen. Not gently. The boy started to cry. "Shut up," Vanessa snapped. "Both of you just shut up. I can't think with all this noise." She walked out of the kitchen, leaving Amara frozen at the table and Isaiah screaming in his playpen. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then Amara got up from her chair, walked to the playpen, and lifted her brother into her arms. "Shh," she whispered, rocking him gently. "It's okay. It's okay. Mara's here. Mara's got you." She carried him to the corner of the kitchen as far from the door as possible and sat down on the floor with her back against the cabinet. "Don't cry," she told him, her own voice trembling. "If we're quiet, she won't come back. Just be quiet, okay? Please be quiet." Marcus paused the video. He couldn't watch anymore. His wife hated his children, actively, vocally, deliberately hated them. And she had been hiding it behind smiles and sweetness while he buried himself in work and pretended everything was fine. He had failed them. Failed Denise. Failed everyone. But not anymore. He pulled up David's number and typed a message. "Keep recording. I need more." The reply came immediately. Understood. Over the next 3 days, Marcus watched hours of footage. He saw Vanessa slap Amara for dropping a spoon. He saw her pour out the children's milk and replace it with water. He saw her take the cash he left for groceries and spend it on spa treatments with her friend Brianna. He saw her on the phone laughing about her plans. Girl, I'm telling you, this is the long game. Marcus is worth $40 million. Once I get power of attorney over those kids' trust funds, I'm set for life. And he saw over and over the way Amara protected Isaiah, giving him her food, soothing him when he cried, whispering promises in the dark. It's okay, baby brother. Daddy will see soon. Daddy will save us. We just have to hold on a little longer. On the third night, Marcus couldn't take it anymore. He left the office at noon and drove to his attorney's building in Manhattan. James Franklin had been Denise's godfather. He had handled their prenup, their wills, the children's trust funds. If anyone could help Marcus navigate what came next, it was him. James was in his mid-60s, tall and lean, with silver hair and sharp eyes that had seen every kind of betrayal the wealthy could devise. Marcus, he stood and shook hands. I was surprised to get your call. Is everything all right? No. Marcus sat down heavily. Nothing is all right. I need your help, James, and I need to show you something. He took out his phone and played the footage. James watched in silence. His face, usually so composed, grew harder with each clip. By the time the phone went dark, his hands were clenched on his desk. How long has this been happening? I don't know, months at least, maybe since we got married. And you had no idea. I was working, traveling. I trusted her. The words tasted like ash. I trusted her with everything. James was quiet for a moment. Then he opened his desk drawer and pulled out a legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. First, I'm going to file emergency custody papers. Given this evidence, any judge in New York will grant you sole custody immediately. Second, I'm going to freeze every joint account and revoke any power of attorney she might have. Third, I'm going to contact the DA's office. What you've shown me isn't just grounds for divorce, it's child abuse. She needs to be prosecuted. What about the children? I don't want them to go through a trial. They won't have to. We have video evidence. Their testimony might not even be necessary. James looked at him with something like compassion. Marcus, I know this is hard, but you're doing the right thing. Denise would be proud of you. Marcus's throat closed at the mention of her name. I should have seen it sooner. You see it now. That's what matters. James stood up. Go home. Act normal. Don't let Vanessa know anything has changed. I'll have the papers ready by tomorrow afternoon and we'll move fast. By this time next week, she'll be out of your house and facing charges. Marcus nodded and stood to leave. At the door, he paused. James? Yes. Thank you for believing me, for not thinking I was crazy. James smiled sadly. I've been practicing family law for 40 years. I've seen things that would turn your hair white. This. He gestured at the phone in Marcus's hand. This is evil, pure and simple, and evil needs to be stopped. That night, Marcus went home and had dinner with his family. Vanessa had made roast chicken. She laughed and smiled and touched his arm. She complimented his suit and asked about his day and poured him a glass of expensive wine. And the whole time, Marcus watched her. He watched the way her eyes followed Amara, the way her smile tightened when Isaiah cried, the way she performed the role of loving wife and mother with the precision of a trained actress. After dinner, he helped Amara with her homework while Vanessa watched television in the living room. Daddy, Amara whispered, can I ask you something? Anything, baby. Are you going to stay? He looked at his daughter, her beautiful, tired face. Her mother's eyes filled with hope and fear in equal measure. I'm not going anywhere, he said. I promise. Do you mean it? I mean it with my whole heart. She threw her arms around his neck and held on tight, and Marcus held her back, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling her small heart beating against his chest. It's almost over, he whispered. Just hold on a little longer. Daddy's going to fix everything. Later that night, when the house was dark and everyone was asleep, Marcus sat in his office and made one final call. Detective Angela Harris, Special Victims Unit. Detective Harris, my name is Marcus Washington. I need to report a case of child abuse. What's your relationship to the children involved, Mr. Washington? I'm their father. His voice broke on the word. And I have video evidence of my wife abusing them. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I'm going to need you to come in tomorrow morning, Mr. Washington. Bring the evidence. We'll take it from there. What happens next? If the evidence supports your claims, we'll obtain a warrant. Your wife will be arrested and charged. The children will be placed in your custody. Another pause. Mr. Washington, I want you to know something. It takes courage to make this call. A lot of people in your position never do. They convince themselves they're imagining things. They protect the abuser instead of the children. The fact that you're reaching out, that you're fighting for your kids, that matters. That matters a lot. Marcus closed his eyes. I should have done it sooner. You're doing it now. That's what counts. He could hear her typing something. I'll see you tomorrow at 9. And Mr. Washington? Yes. Your children are lucky to have you. He hung up the phone and sat in the darkness. Tomorrow everything would change. Tomorrow he would walk into a police station and set in motion events that would destroy his marriage, expose his wife, and enforce him to confront every failure of the past 18 months. But for the first time since Denise died, he felt something other than grief. He felt purpose. He walked upstairs to the children's room and opened the door. Amara was asleep in her bed, one arm dangling over the side. Isaiah was in his crib, his chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. Marcus stood in the doorway and watched them. Hold on, he whispered into the darkness. Just hold on a little longer. Then he closed the door and went to bed next to the woman he was about to destroy. He didn't sleep, but for the first time in a long time, he wasn't running from the truth. He was running toward it, and nothing, not Vanessa's lies, not his own failures, not all the money in the world was going to stop him from saving his children. Tomorrow the reckoning would begin. The alarm went off at 6:30, and Marcus was already awake. He hadn't slept more than 20 minutes the whole night, lying beside Vanessa, listening to her breathe, counting the hours until he could act. He showered and dressed in silence. Navy suit, white shirt, the tie Denise had given him for their 5th anniversary. He didn't know why he chose that tie. Maybe he needed her close. Maybe he needed to remember what he was fighting for. Vanessa was still asleep when he left the bedroom. He stopped at the children's door and pushed it open just enough to see inside. Amara was curled around her pillow, her braids loose and tangled. Isaiah was on his back in the crib, one tiny fist pressed against his cheek. I'll be back, Marcus whispered. I promise I'll be back. He closed the door and walked downstairs. The drive to the Special Victims Unit took 40 minutes through morning traffic. Marcus parked in the garage across the street and sat in his car for 5 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, trying to steady his breathing. He thought about turning around, going to work, pretending none of this was happening. Then he thought about Amara's face streaked with milk, whispering apologies for trying to feed her brother. He got out of the car. The precinct was busy even at this early hour. Phones ringing, officers moving, the constant hum of a machine that never stopped. Marcus gave his name to the desk sergeant and waited. 10 minutes later, a woman appeared, mid-40s with short, natural hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything at once. She wore a dark blazer and walked with the confidence of someone who had faced down monsters before. Mr. Washington, I'm Detective Angela Harris. Thank you for coming in. Her handshake was firm, her voice was calm, and something about her steadiness made Marcus feel for the first time in days like he wasn't alone. Follow me. She led him to a small interview room with a table, 2 chairs, and a recording device on a shelf. No windows, no distractions. Before we begin, she said, sitting across from him, I want you to understand what you're doing here. Once you file this report, events will move quickly. Your wife will be investigated. If the evidence supports your claims, she will be arrested. There's no taking it back. I understand. Are you sure? Because I've seen cases like this before. Husbands who change their minds. Who decide the publicity isn't worth it, or the marriage is more important, or maybe they were overreacting. She leaned forward. I need to know you're committed. Marcus pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. 3 days of footage. My wife hitting my daughter. Starving my children. Threatening them. Plotting to steal their trust funds. His voice was steady, but his hands were not. I'm not overreacting, detective, and I'm not changing my mind. Angela picked up the phone. May I? Please. She watched the first clip, then the second. By the third, her jaw had tightened into something that looked like controlled rage. How old is your daughter? 7. And the baby? 10 months. Angela set the phone down. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she picked up her desk phone and dialed. Captain, I need a warrant, child abuse and financial fraud, and I need it today. The next 2 hours were a blur of paperwork and questions. Marcus answered everything. The timeline of his marriage. Vanessa's behavior. The neighbors and teachers who had noticed something wrong. James Franklin's name as his attorney. David Okonkwo's role in installing the cameras. When it was finally over, Angela walked him to the door. Go home, she said. Act normal. We'll execute the warrant this afternoon. I'll have officers at your residence by 4 o'clock. What do I tell Vanessa? Nothing. Let her think it's an ordinary day. Angela's eyes softened just slightly. Mr. Washington, what you're doing takes courage. Your children are lucky to have a father who's willing to fight for them. I should have fought sooner. You're fighting now. That's what matters. Marcus walked back to his car and sat behind the wheel. His phone showed 3 missed calls from Vanessa and a text message. Where are you? The children are asking. He typed a reply with numb fingers. Early meeting, home by 4. Kiss them for me. Then he started the car and drove to James Franklin's office to wait. The morning crawled by. Marcus sat in James's conference room, staring at documents he couldn't read, drinking coffee he couldn't taste. Every few minutes he checked his phone. Every few minutes he imagined Vanessa going about her day unaware that her world was about to collapse. At noon, James came in with sandwiches. Eat something, you'll need your strength. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. James sat across from him. I've filed the custody papers. Emergency motion. Judge Patterson is reviewing them now. If everything goes according to plan, you'll have sole temporary custody by end of business today. And the trust funds? Frozen as of this morning. Every account she had access to. She won't be able to touch a penny. James paused. There's something else you should know. Marcus looked up. My investigator found some things about Vanessa's past. Things she never told you. What kind of things? Get some. James opened a folder. Her real name isn't Vanessa Cole. It's Vanessa Porter. She changed it legally about 8 years ago, right after a civil suit was filed against her in Florida. What kind of suit? Some elder abuse. She was working as a caregiver for a wealthy widow named Margaret Chen. Mrs. Chen changed her will to leave Vanessa almost everything. When the family contested it, they found evidence that Vanessa had been isolating Mrs. Chen from her children, controlling her finances, manipulating her medication. James's voice was grim. The case was settled out of court. Vanessa walked away with $200,000 and a sealed record. Marcus felt sick. She's done this before. It appears so. She has a pattern. Wealthy grieving targets, quick marriages or close relationships, financial manipulation, and when things go wrong, she disappears and starts over somewhere else. James closed the folder. You weren't her first victim, Marcus, but if we do this right, you might be her last. At 2 o'clock, Marcus's phone rang. Angela Harris. We have the warrant. My team is mobilizing now. Where are you? At my attorney's office. Stay there until I call you. This shouldn't take long. What about my children? I don't want them to see their stepmother arrested. I've coordinated with your daughter's school. Officers will pick her up and the baby from the house before we execute the warrant. They'll be brought to a child advocacy center where they'll be safe and comfortable. You can meet them there afterward. Thank you. Mr. Washington, Angela's voice was steady. It's almost over. He hung up and closed his eyes. Almost over. After months of blindness, after weeks of suspicion, after days of watching his wife torture his children through a screen, almost over. At 3:15, his phone rang again. The children are secure, Angela said. We're approaching the house now. I'll call you when we have her in custody. Marcus stood up and walked to the window. Somewhere across the city, officers were climbing the steps of his brownstone. Somewhere across the city, Vanessa was about to learn that her game was finished. He watched the traffic below and waited. At 3:47, the call came. It's done, Angela said. Vanessa Washington is in custody. Marcus exhaled a breath he felt like he'd been holding for a year. How did she react? About how you'd expect. Denial at first, then anger, then threats. Angela paused. She's asking for a lawyer. We've booked her on charges of child abuse, child endangerment, and conspiracy to commit financial fraud. Bail hearing will be tomorrow morning. And my children. They're at the Harlem Children's Advocacy Center on 125th Street, safe, warm, and asking for their daddy. Marcus was already grabbing his coat. I'm on my way. Yes. The Advocacy Center was a 3-story building with bright murals on the outside walls and soft lighting inside. Marcus pushed through the doors and was met by a young woman with kind eyes and a name tag that read Counselor Michelle. Mr. Washington, your children are in the Rainbow Room. Follow me. She led him down a hallway decorated with children's artwork, handprints, butterflies, suns with smiling faces. The walls seemed designed to make frightened children feel safe. Michelle stopped at a door painted with a rainbow. They've been asking for you, she said softly, especially Amara. She's been holding her brother since they arrived. Won't let anyone else touch him. Marcus's heart clenched. Can I go in? Of course, take all the time you need. He pushed open the door. Amara was sitting on a small couch in the corner Isaiah clutched against her chest. When she saw her father, her whole body tensed as if she wasn't sure whether to run toward him or away. "Daddy?" Marcus crossed the room in 3 steps and dropped to his knees in front of her. "I'm here, baby. Daddy's here." "Is it true?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Is she really gone?" "She's gone. She's not coming back. She's never going to hurt you again." Amara stared at him. Her eyes were wide and uncertain. The eyes of a child who had learned not to trust promises. "You said that before. You said everything would be okay, and then it wasn't." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. I know I let you down. I wasn't there when you needed me. I didn't see what was happening, even when it was right in front of my face." He reached out and touched her cheek. "But I see it now. I see you, and I am so sorry." Tears spilled down Amara's face. "I tried to tell you, so many times, but she said if I said anything, Isaiah would go hungry. She said no one would believe me because I'm just a little girl. She said..." "I know what she said." Marcus's voice was thick. "And she was wrong. You are not just anything. You are brave and strong and good. You protected your brother when no one else would. You are the best big sister in the world." Amara's lip trembled. "I'm tired, Daddy. I'm so tired." Marcus pulled her into his arms, Isaiah and all. He held them both against his chest and let his tears fall into his daughter's hair. "I know, baby, but you can rest now. Daddy's got you. Daddy's got both of you." For a long time they stayed like that. 3 broken pieces of a family holding on to each other in a room painted with rainbows. Finally, Amara pulled back and looked at her father. "What happens now?" "Now we go home, just the 3 of us. No more Vanessa. No more Vanessa. No more hiding. No more being hungry." He wiped her tears with his thumb. "Just us." Amara nodded slowly. Then for the first time in months she smiled. It was small. It was hesitant. But it was real. And to Marcus, it was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. They left the advocacy center as the sun was setting. Marcus carried Isaiah in one arm and held Amara's hand with the other. The autumn air was crisp and clean, and the city seemed somehow brighter than it had that morning. When they reached the car, Amara stopped. "Daddy?" "Yes, baby." "Can we get ice cream?" Marcus looked down at his daughter, this child who had been starved and threatened and forced to become a mother at 7 years old. This child who had every reason to be broken but was still standing. This child who was asking for ice cream like it was the most normal thing in the world. He laughed. He couldn't help it. The sound came out rough and wet somewhere between a sob and a chuckle. "Yeah, baby, we can get ice cream." They stopped at a little shop on Frederick Douglass Boulevard. Amara got chocolate with sprinkles. Marcus got vanilla. And Isaiah got to taste his first tiny lick of strawberry, his eyes going wide with surprise and delight. They sat on a bench outside watching the evening traffic eating their cones in silence. "Daddy?" Amara said after a while. Is Mommy watching us from heaven?" Marcus looked up at the sky. The first stars were just beginning to appear. "Yeah, baby, I think she is." "Is she happy?" He thought about Denise. Her smile, her laugh, the way she had held his hand in the hospital and made him promise to take care of their children. "I think she's very happy," he said. "I think she's proud of you." Amara leaned against his shoulder. "I miss her." "Me too, baby, me too." They finished their ice cream and drove home. The brownstone looked different somehow. The same brick facade, the same iron railings, the same expensive windows. But something had changed. The heaviness that had hung over the place was gone, replaced by something lighter. Something that felt almost like hope. Marcus carried Isaiah inside and settled him in his crib. The boy fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from the day's events. Amara stood in the doorway of her room, hesitating. "What's wrong?" Marcus asked. "It feels weird, being here without her." "Good weird or bad weird?" She thought about it. "I don't know yet." "That's okay. You don't have to know right away." He walked over and knelt in front of her. "Things are going to be different now. I'm going to be here, really here, not just coming home late and leaving early. I'm going to make breakfast and pack lunches and help with homework and read stories before bed. I'm going to be your daddy again." "You were always my daddy." "I know, but I wasn't acting like it. And I'm sorry. I'm going to do better. I promise." Amara looked at him for a long moment. Then she threw her arms around his neck. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby girl, more than anything in the world." He tucked her into bed and sat beside her until she fell asleep. Then he walked downstairs to his office and closed the door. On his desk was a framed photo of Denise. She was laughing at something off camera, her head thrown back, her whole face bright with joy. It was his favorite picture of her, the one that captured exactly who she was. Marcus picked up the frame and held it in his hands. "I almost lost them, he said quietly. "I almost let her destroy everything you loved. I'm sorry, Denise, I'm so sorry." The photo didn't answer. Of course it didn't, but somehow sitting there in the quiet of his office, Marcus felt something. A warmth that had nothing to do with the heating system. A presence that had nothing to do with the physical world. Maybe it was his imagination. Maybe it was wishful thinking. Maybe it was just exhaustion playing tricks on his mind. Or maybe just maybe Denise was there after all, watching over her babies, watching over him. "I'll take care of them," he whispered. "I promise. This time I'll get it right." He put the photo back on his desk and walked upstairs to check on the children. They were both sleeping peacefully. No nightmares, no tears. Just two small bodies, finally safe, finally at rest. Marcus stood in the doorway and watched them breathe. Tomorrow there would be lawyers and court dates and difficult conversations. Tomorrow the real work of rebuilding would begin. Tomorrow he would have to figure out how to be a single father to two children who had been through trauma he could barely comprehend. But tonight they were okay. Tonight they were together. Tonight that was enough. The next morning Marcus woke to a sound he hadn't heard in months. Laughter. He bolted out of bed and ran to the children's room. Amara was on the floor with Isaiah dangling a stuffed elephant over his head. The baby was reaching for it, giggling, his whole face bright with joy. "Look, Daddy," Amara said. "He's laughing. He's actually laughing." Marcus leaned against the doorframe and watched. "Yeah, baby, he is. He never laughed before. Not like this." She picked up her brother and held him close. "I think he knows. I think he knows she's gone." Marcus walked over and sat down on the floor beside them. "How did you sleep?" "Good. Really good." She paused. "No bad dreams." "That's wonderful, baby." "Daddy," she looked at him with those eyes that were so much like Denise's. "What's going to happen to her? To Vanessa?" Marcus took a deep breath. "She's going to be in a lot of trouble. She did very bad things, and when grown-ups do bad things, they have to face consequences. Like jail. Maybe? Probably. For a long time." Amara nodded slowly. "Good. She was mean. Really, really mean." "I know. But Daddy," she bit her lip, "sometimes I feel bad, because I used to wish she would go away. Every night I used to wish really hard, and now she's gone, and I feel like maybe it's my fault." Marcus pulled her into his lap, Isaiah and all. "Listen to me. What happened to Vanessa is not your fault. You didn't make her do bad things. You didn't make the police arrest her. She made her own choices, and now she has to deal with the consequences." He tilted her chin up. "You have nothing to feel guilty about. Nothing." "Are you sure?" "I'm positive." She nestled against his chest, Isaiah between them. "Daddy?" "Yes?" "Can we have pancakes for breakfast?" He laughed. A real laugh, deep and full. "Yeah, baby, we can have pancakes." They went downstairs together. Marcus found a recipe on his phone and gathered ingredients from the pantry. He had never made pancakes before. Denise had always been the cook, but Denise wasn't here anymore, and his children were hungry. He cracked eggs into a bowl and promptly dropped half the shell in. Amara giggled. "That's not how you do it, Daddy." "Then show me how." She climbed onto a stool and demonstrated cracking the egg with one hand like a professional. "Mommy taught me," she said, "before she got sick." "She taught you well." Together they mixed the batter. Marcus poured the first pancake onto the griddle and watched it bubble. "How do I know when to flip it?" "When the bubbles pop and don't fill back in." "How do you know all this?" Amara shrugged. "I used to watch Mommy cook. I wanted to remember everything she did." Marcus felt his heart crack a little more. "You're amazing, you know that. You're absolutely amazing." She smiled and reached for the spatula. "Flip now, Daddy, before it burns." He flipped the pancake. It was lopsided and a little too brown on one side, but when he put it on a plate and drizzled it with syrup, Amara declared it the best pancake she had ever eaten. They sat at the kitchen table, all three of them, eating their imperfect breakfast. Isaiah made a mess with his portion-smearing batter across his high chair and into his hair. Amara laughed and tried to clean him up. Marcus took pictures on his phone. Normal things, simple things, things that had been impossible just 24 hours ago. When breakfast was done, the doorbell rang. Marcus opened it to find Miss Gwen standing on the porch, a covered dish in her hands. I heard what happened, she said without preamble. The whole building heard. Are those babies okay? They're fine, better than fine. He stepped aside. Come in. Miss Gwen walked into the living room and stopped when she saw Amara. There's my girl. She set down the dish and opened her arms. Come here, child. Amara ran to her and buried her face in the old woman's shoulder. It's over, Miss Gwen. It's really over. I know, baby, I know. Miss Gwen stroked her hair. You're safe now. You're finally safe. She stayed for an hour fussing over the children, pressing food on Marcus, filling the house with the warmth it had been missing. You need help, she said bluntly. You can't do this alone. A man trying to raise 2 children, one of them still in diapers, you'll run yourself into the ground. I'll figure it out. Nonsense, I'm retired. I've got nothing but time. I'll come by in the mornings, help with breakfast and getting Amara to school, and when you need a night off, you call me. Those children know me. They trust me. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. Miss Gwen, I can't ask you to. You're not asking, I'm telling. She patted his cheek. Denise was like a daughter to me. Those are her babies. I'm going to help whether you like it or not. He laughed despite himself. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just take care of those children. She picked up her purse. Now I've got to get to my hair appointment, but I'll be back tomorrow morning at 7. And you'd better have coffee ready. She walked out the door, leaving behind the smell of her perfume and the warmth of her kindness. Amara looked at her father. She's nice. Yeah, baby, she really is. The afternoon brought more visitors. Miss Lorraine came by with a box of books for Amara and a teddy bear for Isaiah. She sat with the children for an hour reading stories, making them laugh. I've been in touch with the school counselor, she told Marcus quietly. Amara's going to need support. We have resources for children who've been through trauma. With your permission, I'd like to get her enrolled in our healing arts program. Whatever she needs, whatever helps. Lorraine nodded. She's a strong girl, stronger than most adults I know, but even strong people need help sometimes. I'm learning that. Good. She smiled. You're going to be okay, Mr. Washington. All 3 of you. I really believe that. After Lorraine left, Marcus's phone rang. James Franklin. Bail hearing was this morning. Vanessa's lawyer asked for release on her own recognizance. Judge denied it. She's staying in jail. For now, flight risk given her history. Bail was set at $500,000. James paused. Marcus, there's something else. Vanessa's lawyer is claiming entrapment. He's saying the cameras were illegally installed, that the footage should be inadmissible. Marcus's blood ran cold. Can he do that? He can try, but I don't think he'll succeed. The cameras were in your home on your property. You had every right to install them, and the footage is just corroboration. We have testimony from neighbors, teachers' medical records showing the children were malnourished. The case is solid. What happens next? Preliminary hearing in 2 weeks. If the judge finds enough evidence, Vanessa goes to trial. James's voice softened. Marcus, I know this is hard, but you're doing the right thing. Stay the course. That evening, after the children were asleep, Marcus sat in his office and opened his laptop. He had avoided watching Denise's video since the night she died. It hurt too much. Her face, her voice, the knowledge that she was already gone and would never come back. But tonight, he needed to see her, needed to hear her voice, needed to remember why he was doing this. He clicked on the file. Denise appeared on the screen. She was in her hospital bed, thin and pale, but her eyes were bright, alive. Marcus? Her voice was soft. If you're watching this, it means I'm gone. And I'm so sorry. I wanted to stay. I wanted to watch our babies grow up. I wanted to grow old with you. She paused, swallowing hard. But if I can't be there, I need you to promise me something. Watch over Amara and Isaiah. Protect them. Love them enough for both of us. Her eyes filled with tears. I know you're going to want to run away, to bury yourself in work and forget the pain. But you can't do that. They need you. They need their father. Marcus was crying now, silent tears running down his face. And Marcus, watch Amara's eyes. They'll tell you everything. She's so much like me. She feels everything so deeply. Don't let anyone hurt her. Don't let anyone take her light away. Denise smiled through her tears. I love you. I love our children, and I believe in you. Even when you don't believe in yourself, be the father I know you can be. Be the man I married. Be brave. The video ended. Marcus sat in the dark, his wife's voice echoing in his ears. Be brave. He thought about the past few days, the fear, the doubt, The moments when he had wanted to look away to pretend everything was fine to let someone else handle the mess. And then he thought about Amara kneeling in a puddle of milk, apologizing for trying to feed her brother. He had been a coward. He had let his children suffer because he was too afraid to face the truth. But not anymore. He was awake now. He was fighting, and he would never, ever stop. Marcus closed the laptop and walked upstairs to the children's room. They were sleeping peacefully. Amara on her side, one hand reaching toward Isaiah's crib. Isaiah on his back, his tiny chest rising and falling. Marcus stood in the doorway and watched them breathe. "I promise," he whispered into the darkness. "I promise. I'll protect you, no matter what, for as long as I live." Then he walked to his own room, lay down in his empty bed, and for the first time in months, slept without nightmares. 2 weeks had passed since Vanessa's arrest, and Marcus had learned more about being a father in those 14 days than in the entire year before. He learned that Isaiah needed his bottle warmed to exactly the right temperature or he would refuse to drink. He learned that Amara had nightmares on Tuesdays, always Tuesdays, because that was the day Vanessa used to lock her in the closet for talking back. He learned that bedtime stories had to be read twice, once for understanding and once for comfort, or his daughter couldn't fall asleep. He learned that love was not a feeling, it was a verb. It was waking up at 3 a.m. when the baby cried. It was braiding hair badly and trying again until he got it right. It was sitting on the bathroom floor while Amara took a bath because she was afraid to be alone in any room with a closed door. On the morning of the preliminary hearing, Marcus woke before dawn. He checked on the children first. Both sleeping. Both safe. Then he showered, dressed in his best suit, and went downstairs to find Miss Gwen already in the kitchen making coffee. "Big day?" she said without turning around. "Yeah." "You ready?" "I don't know if anyone's ever ready for something like this." She handed him a cup. "You'll do fine. You've got truth on your side. That counts for something." At 7:30, James Franklin arrived to drive him to the courthouse. Amara was awake by then, standing in the hallway in her pajamas, watching her father put on his coat. "Where are you going?" Marcus knelt down to her level. "Daddy has to go to court today. Remember we talked about this?" She nodded slowly. "Is she going to be there, Vanessa?" "Yes, but she can't hurt you. She can't even come near you. The police won't let her." "Are you scared?" Marcus thought about lying. Thought about putting on a brave face and telling her everything was fine. But Amara had been lied to enough. "A little," he admitted, "but I'm going anyway, because sometimes being brave means doing scary things." She hugged him tight. "Come back soon, Daddy." "I will, baby. I promise." The drive to the courthouse took 40 minutes through morning traffic. James spent the time reviewing strategy, but Marcus barely heard him. His mind was elsewhere, on his children, on Denise, on the woman who had infiltrated his home and nearly destroyed everything he loved. The courthouse was a massive stone building on Center Street, its steps crowded with lawyers and defendants and journalists. Marcus kept his head down as he climbed toward the entrance, but someone recognized him. "Mr. Washington, Marcus Washington." A reporter shoved a microphone in his face. Then another, then 3 more. "Is it true your wife was arrested for child abuse?" "How long did the abuse go on?" "Did you know what was happening in your own home?" James grabbed his arm and pulled him through the crowd. "No comment. My client has no comment at this time." They pushed through the doors and into the relative quiet of the lobby. Marcus's heart was pounding. "That's going to be in every paper tomorrow," he said. "We knew the press would get involved eventually. Just stay focused on what matters." They made their way through security and up to the 3rd floor. Courtroom 3B. The door was heavy oak and it groaned when James pushed it open. The room was already half full. Prosecutors on one side, defense on the other. And in the front row of the gallery, wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, sat Vanessa. She looked different. No makeup, no designer clothes. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail and there were dark circles under her eyes. But when she saw Marcus, she smiled. That same smile, the one that had fooled him for 18 months. The one that hid a monster. Marcus forced himself to look away. He took his seat behind the prosecution table next to Detective Angela Harris. She nodded at him once a silent acknowledgement. "We're in this together?" At exactly 9 o'clock, the bailiff announced the judge. "All rise, the Honorable Patricia Whitmore presiding." Judge Whitmore was a black woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. She took her seat and surveyed the courtroom. "We are here for a preliminary hearing in the matter of the State of New York versus Vanessa Porter Washington. The defendant is charged with child abuse in the first-degree child endangerment and conspiracy to commit financial fraud." She looked at the defense table. Mr. Sullivan, how does your client plead? Vanessa's lawyer stood. Raymond Sullivan was a tall man with slicked back hair and an expensive suit. He had a reputation for defending wealthy clients and getting them off on technicalities. Not guilty, Your Honor, on all counts. The judge nodded. Very well, the prosecution may present its case. Assistant District Attorney Monica Chen rose. She was young, maybe 35, with sharp features and sharper instincts. James had recommended her specifically because she had never lost a child abuse case. Your Honor, the people will demonstrate that the defendant systematically abused and neglected 2 minor children over a period of approximately 16 months. We have video evidence, witness testimony, medical records, and documentary evidence of financial fraud. We request that the defendant be held without bail pending trial. Mr. Sullivan? Your Honor, my client is a victim of entrapment. The so-called evidence was obtained through illegal surveillance installed without her knowledge or consent. Furthermore, the video footage has been selectively edited to portray my client in the worst possible light. The real story is far more nuanced. Judge Whitmore raised an eyebrow. We'll let the evidence speak for itself. Ms. Chen, call your first witness. Monica nodded. The people called Detective Angela Harris. Angela took the stand and was sworn in. For the next hour, she walked the court through the investigation, the initial report, the warrant, the arrest, the discovery of evidence. Detective Harris, can you describe what you found when you reviewed the surveillance footage from the Washington residence? Angela's face was carefully neutral, but her voice carried the weight of what she had seen. The footage shows the defendant engaging in repeated acts of physical and emotional abuse against a 7-year-old girl. Hitting, slapping, verbal degradation. In one instance, the defendant poured milk over the child's head as punishment for trying to feed her infant brother. A murmur ran through the courtroom. And the infant, what did the footage show regarding his treatment? The defendant routinely withheld food from both children. She diluted the infant's formula with water to make it last longer. She spent household money intended for children's necessities on personal items such as spa treatments and designer clothing. Objection. Sullivan was on his feet. Speculation. The detective cannot know how household funds were allocated. We have bank statements and receipts. Your Honor, Monica said calmly. I'm happy to introduce them as exhibits. Overruled? Continue. The testimony went on. Angela detailed the phone conversations Vanessa had been caught on camera having with her friend Brianna, the plans to gain power of attorney over the children's trust funds, the references to Marcus as an easy mark. By the time Angela stepped down, Marcus felt sick. Hearing it all laid out in clinical detail made it somehow worse, more real, more damning. The next witness was Miss Lorraine Mitchell. She walked to the stand with quiet dignity, her natural hair styled neatly, her dress modest and professional. She took the oath and sat down, her hands folded in her lap. Miss Mitchell, you are Amara Washington's 2nd grade teacher at Frederick Douglass Elementary, is that correct? Yes. How long have you known the child? Since September of last year, about 18 months. And during that time, did you notice any changes in her behavior? Lorraine took a deep breath. Amara was a bright, happy child when she first came to my class. She raised her hand for every question. She played with other children at recess. She laughed. Her voice caught. But over the past several months, I watched her change. She became withdrawn, stopped participating, started sitting alone at lunch, hiding food in her backpack. Did you ask her about this behavior? I did, several times. She always said everything was fine, but her eyes told a different story. Lorraine looked at Marcus. That child was terrified. Anyone who took the time to really look could see it. Did you report your concerns? I was preparing to contact Child Protective Services when Mr. Washington reached out to me. I shared my observations with him and he took immediate action. Thank you, Miss Mitchell. No further questions. Sullivan approached for cross-examination. Miss Mitchell, you're not a licensed psychologist, are you? No? And you have no medical training that would allow you to diagnose signs of abuse. I have 15 years of experience working with children. I know when something is wrong. But you can't say definitively that what you observed was the result of abuse, can you? No. Children change for many reasons. Grief, for example. Amara Washington lost her mother. Isn't it possible that her behavioral changes were related to that loss rather than any actions by my client? Lorraine's eyes flashed. It's possible that grief contributed, but grief doesn't explain why a child hoards food. Grief doesn't explain the bruises I saw on her arms. Grief doesn't explain the look of pure terror in her eyes every time her stepmother came to pick her up. Move to strike, The witness is speculating about I'll allow it? Judge Whitmore's voice was firm. The witness is offering her observations based on her experience. Continue, Mr. Sullivan. Sullivan tried a few more angles, but Lorraine held her ground. By the time she stepped down, Marcus could see the frustration on the defense attorney's face. The morning session ended at noon. Judge Whitmore called a 2-hour recess for lunch. Marcus couldn't eat. He sat in a conference room with James and Monica, staring at a sandwich he had no appetite for. "It's going well," Monica said. "Better than expected. Judge Whitmore is clearly taking this seriously. What happens this afternoon?" "We call more witnesses, Miss Gwen, the pediatrician who examined the children after the arrest, and then..." She paused. "We show the video." Marcus's stomach turned. "In open court? It's the most damning evidence we have. The judge needs to see it." Monica's voice softened. "I know it's hard, but we need this. The children need this." At 2 o'clock, court resumed. Miss Gwen was called to the stand. She walked up with the confidence of a woman who had nothing to hide and everything to say. "State your name for the record." "Gwendolyn Marie Carter?" "And your relationship to the Washington family?" "I've known them for 20 years. Denise Washington was like a daughter to me. I watched her grow up, get married, have her babies." Miss Gwen's voice wavered. "I was at the hospital the night she died. I promised her I would look out for her children." "And did you have occasion to observe the defendant's treatment of those children?" "I did, though not as much as I should have. That woman was clever. She kept the children away from me as much as possible. But Amara found ways to come see me. She would knock on my door late at night, sometimes asking for food, saying her baby brother was hungry." "Did you report this to Mr. Washington?" "I tried, several times. But he was always rushing off somewhere, working, traveling. He didn't want to hear it." Miss Gwen looked at Marcus with something like sorrow. "I don't blame him. He was grieving, and that woman had him wrapped around her finger. But I should have pushed harder. I should have made him listen." "What finally changed?" "He came to me, about 2 weeks before the arrest, sat in my living room and asked me to tell him the truth, and I did, every bit of it." Miss Gwen straightened her shoulders. "That man loves his children. He just needed to wake up, and once he did, he didn't waste a single moment." Sullivan declined to cross-examine. Smart Marcus thought. Attacking an elderly woman who had been friends with the deceased mother would not play well. The next witness was Dr. Rashid Patel, the pediatrician who had examined Amara and Isaiah after the arrest. "Dr. Patel, what did your examination reveal about the physical condition of the children?" "Both children showed signs of malnutrition. The infant Isaiah was in the 5th percentile for weight when he should have been in the 50th. The older child, Amara, had lost nearly 10 pounds since her last checkup 18 months prior. She also had multiple bruises on her arms and legs in various stages of healing. In your professional opinion, what caused these conditions? The malnutrition was consistent with chronic food deprivation. The bruises were consistent with repeated physical abuse. Could there be any other explanation? In my 20 years of practice, I have learned to recognize the signs of abuse. These children were being deliberately harmed and neglected. There is no other reasonable explanation." Sullivan's cross-examination was aggressive. "Dr. Patel, children bruise easily, don't they, from playing falling normal childhood activities?" "Some bruising is normal, yes. And weight fluctuations can be caused by many factors: illness, growth spurts, picky eating." "They can. But the pattern I observed in these children was not consistent with any of those explanations. It was consistent with abuse." "You can't know that for certain, can you? You're making assumptions based on care. I'm making a diagnosis based on evidence." Dr. Patel's voice hardened. "I have examined thousands of children. I know what abuse looks like, and I know what I saw." The afternoon was wearing on. Judge Whitmore looked at the clock. "Ms. Chen, how much more do you have?" "Just the video evidence, Your Honor. It shouldn't take long." "Very well. Proceed." Monica approached the bench with a laptop. "Your Honor, the people would like to introduce Exhibit 14. This is surveillance footage recorded in the Washington residence over a 3-day period." The courtroom grew silent as the screen was set up. Marcus gripped the arm of his seat. He had seen this footage, had watched it alone in his office, tears streaming down his face. But watching it in a courtroom full of strangers was different. Worse. The first clip showed Vanessa in the kitchen slapping Amara across the face for dropping a spoon. The crack of the slap echoed through the courtroom. A woman in the gallery gasped. Someone muttered an obscenity. Even Judge Whitmore's composed expression flickered. The second clip showed Vanessa on the phone with Brianna. Marcus is worth $40 million. Once I get power of attorney over those kids' trust funds, I'm set for life. The third clip was the worst. Vanessa holding the crystal pitcher pouring milk over Amara's head while the little girl knelt on the floor, clutching her baby brother, sobbing. I'm sorry. I just wanted my brother to have a full stomach. And then Vanessa's voice cold and cruel. You're just a little black girl that nobody cares about. Your mother is dead. Your father doesn't see you. And if you tell anyone about this, I will make sure your brother never eats again. The courtroom was utterly silent. Marcus couldn't breathe. He stared at the screen at his daughter's terrified face at the monster he had married and felt rage and grief and guilt crash over him in waves. Monica turned off the video. No further exhibits, Your Honor. Judge Whitmore removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was heavy. Mr. Sullivan, do you wish to cross-examine regarding the video evidence? Sullivan stood slowly. He looked like a man who knew he had lost. Your Honor, the defense maintains that this footage was obtained illegally and should be inadmissible. Furthermore, it has been edited to remove context that would save it for trial, Mr. Sullivan. Judge Whitmore's voice was sharp. I've seen enough. This court finds sufficient evidence to proceed to trial on all charges. The defendant will be held without bail pending trial, which is scheduled for 60 days from today. She banged her gavel. Court is adjourned. The room erupted. Reporters rushed for the doors. Lawyers gathered their papers. And Vanessa was led away by bailiffs, her handcuffs clinking, her perfect facade finally cracking. But before she disappeared through the side door, she turned and looked at Marcus. Her eyes were not defeated. They were calculating, planning, scheming. And in that moment, Marcus knew the fight was not over, not even close. James appeared at his side. That went well, better than well. She's done Marcus. Even the best lawyer in New York couldn't get her out of this. Marcus nodded, but he couldn't shake the look in Vanessa's eyes. What about the trial? 60 days is a long time. A lot can happen. We'll be prepared. Monica has a solid case. The video alone would be enough to convict, but we have witnesses, documents, everything. James put a hand on his shoulder. Go home. Be with your children. Let us handle the rest. Marcus drove home in silence. The city passed by in a blur of lights and sounds that he barely registered. His mind was elsewhere. On the courtroom. On the video. On his daughter's voice, small and broken. I'm sorry. I just wanted my brother to have a full stomach. When he walked through the door, Amara was waiting. She ran to him immediately, throwing her arms around his waist. You're back? I'm back, baby. He lifted her up and held her close. How was your day? Miss Gwen taught me how to make cookies, real ones from scratch. We saved some for you. That sounds amazing. Isaiah was in his playpen gnawing on a stuffed giraffe. When he saw Marcus, he let out a squeal of delight. Dada. Marcus froze. Did he just... He's been saying it all afternoon. Amara was bouncing with excitement. He said Dada like 100 times. And he said Mara, too. That's his name for me. Marcus walked to the playpen and lifted his son into his arms. Isaiah patted his face with chubby hands. Dada. The word hit him like a wave. All the guilt, all the pain, all the fear of the past weeks seemed to dissolve in that single syllable. Yeah, little man. Dada's here. Miss Gwen appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. How did it go? She's going to trial. No bail. 60 days. Miss Gwen nodded slowly. Good. That woman deserves everything coming to her, and then some. She looked at the children. But that's not for tonight. Tonight is for family. Dinner's almost ready, and those cookies won't eat themselves. They ate together at the kitchen table. Pot roast and vegetables and fresh bread. Simple food made with love. Marcus couldn't remember the last time he had sat down for a real family dinner. After the dishes were cleared, Miss Gwen went home, and Marcus gave the children their baths. Isaiah splashed in the water while Amara directed the operation like a tiny general. No daddy, you have to rinse his hair from back to front or he'll get soap in his eyes. Yes, ma'am. And you missed a spot behind his ears. How do you know all this? Because I did it. Her voice grew quiet. When she wouldn't, I learned how to do everything because someone had to take care of him. Marcus stopped what he was doing and looked at his daughter. This 7-year-old girl who had been forced to become a mother when she should have been playing with dolls and learning to ride a bike. You shouldn't have had to do any of that. I know. And you won't have to anymore. From now on, I'm the parent. You're the kid. That's how it's supposed to be. Amara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Daddy, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think Mommy would be proud of me for taking care of Isaiah? Marcus felt his heart crack. Baby, your mommy would be so proud of you she wouldn't have words for it. You are the bravest, strongest, most amazing little girl in the whole world, and I know wherever she is, she's watching you and smiling. Amara's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled through them. I think so too. After the children were in bed, Marcus sat in his office and called James. Anything I should know? There's been a development. James's voice was cautious. Sullivan filed a motion this afternoon. He's claiming that Vanessa was also a victim, that she was suffering from postpartum depression, by proxy, whatever that means, and that she should be treated as mentally ill rather than criminally responsible. Marcus's blood went cold. That's insane. It's a Hail Mary. He knows the evidence against her is overwhelming, so he's trying to shift the narrative, make her sympathetic, suggest that she wasn't in control of her actions. She knew exactly what she was doing. I saw the videos. You heard what she said to Brianna. This was calculated from the beginning. I know, and Monica will tear that defense apart. But I wanted you to be prepared. The trial is going to be ugly. Sullivan will throw everything he can at the wall and see what sticks. Marcus hung up and stared at the ceiling. 60 days. 60 days until trial. 60 days of waiting, worrying, wondering if somehow impossibly Vanessa would find a way to escape justice. He thought about her eyes in the courtroom, that calculating look. She was planning something. He could feel it. But what? The answer came 3 days later. Marcus was at the office when his phone rang. An unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Hello? Mr. Washington, this is Raymond Sullivan. I represent Vanessa Washington. Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. What do you want? I want to propose a deal. My client is willing to plead guilty to a lesser charge, child endangerment rather than abuse. In exchange, she receives a suspended sentence and mandatory counseling, no prison time. Marcus laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You must be joking. I'm entirely serious. Think about it, Mr. Washington. A trial means publicity. Your children's names in the papers. Your daughter potentially called as a witness. Is that really what you want? The threat was barely veiled. Marcus felt rage building in his chest. Let me be clear, Mr. Sullivan. There will be no deal. Your client abused my children, starved them, terrorized them, and she's going to pay for every single moment of suffering she caused. I don't care about the publicity. I don't care about the inconvenience. I care about justice, and I will not rest until she's behind bars where she belongs. There was a pause on the other end of the line. You're making a mistake. No, I made a mistake when I married her. What I'm doing now is fixing it. He hung up and immediately called Monica. Sullivan just offered a plea deal, suspended sentence, no prison time. I expected that. He knows he can't win, so he's trying to negotiate. Don't worry, I won't accept anything less than the maximum sentence. He implied he might call Amara as a witness. Monica was quiet for a moment. He might try. But given her age and the nature of the trauma, I can petition to have her testimony given via video deposition rather than in open court. Or excluded entirely. The video evidence is more than enough. We don't need her on the stand. Make sure of it. I won't let her be re-traumatized. You have my word. The days passed slowly after that. Marcus tried to focus on his children on rebuilding normal life, but the shadow of the upcoming trial hung over everything. And then exactly 2 weeks before the trial was set to begin, something unexpected happened. Marcus was eating breakfast with the children when his phone rang. Monica Chen. We need to talk. Can you come to my office this morning? What's wrong? Just come, as soon as you can. Marcus dropped the children at school and drove downtown. His heart was pounding the entire way. Something had happened. Something bad. Monica was waiting for him in her office. James was there too, his face grim. Sit down, Marcus. He sat. What's going on? Monica slid a folder across the desk. This arrived at my office this morning. It was sent by an anonymous source. Marcus opened the folder. Inside were photographs, documents, bank records. What am I looking at? Evidence that Vanessa has done this before. Not once. Not twice. At least 4 times that we can confirm. Marcus stared at the papers. Names he didn't recognize. Photos of men in expensive suits. death certificates, marriage licenses. She's a black widow, James said quietly. She targets wealthy widowers, marries them, gains access to their finances, and when she's taken what she wants, she disappears. What happened to the other men? 2 are dead. One died in what was ruled an accidental drowning. The other had a heart attack, convenient given that he was in excellent health. Monica's voice was hard. The other 2 are alive but financially ruined. Neither one knew she had been married before. Neither one knew her real name. Marcus felt the room spin. She was going to kill me. We don't know that for certain, but the pattern suggests that if she had stayed longer, if she had gotten access to everything she wanted, you might have had a tragic accident. Monica leaned forward. Marcus, this changes everything. She's not just an oozer, she's potentially a murderer. And now we have the evidence to prove it. Marcus looked at the folder in his hands. The faces of men who had trusted the same woman he had trusted, who had brought her into their homes, into their families. Where did this come from? We don't know. The envelope had no return address. The postmark was from Florida, but that doesn't tell us much. Monica paused. My guess, someone from her past, a survivor, or maybe a family member of one of the victims who finally found the courage to speak up. James stood and walked to the window. We're going to share this with the judge and the prosecution team. It's going to blow Sullivan's defense wide open. There's no way she walks free now. Marcus closed the folder. Good. He drove home in a daze, 4 times. She had done this 4 times before. How many lives had she destroyed? How many families had she torn apart? And how close had he come to being just another name in her file? When he got home, Miss Gwen was there with the children. Amara was doing homework at the kitchen table. Isaiah was taking a nap. You look like you've seen a ghost, Miss Gwen said. Something like that. He told her what he had learned. She listened in silence, her face growing more and more grim. Lord have mercy, she said when he finished. That woman is evil, pure evil. She's not going to get away with it, not this time. No, Miss Gwen's voice was fierce. She most certainly is not. That night, after the children were asleep, Marcus sat in his office and looked at the framed photo of Denise. I almost fell for it, he said quietly. I almost let her destroy everything, our children, our home, everything you built. He picked up the frame and held it close. But she underestimated me. She underestimated you, and she's going to find out what happens when you mess with this family. He set the photo back down and opened his laptop. 60 days had become 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks, Vanessa Cole Washington would face everything she had done, every lie, every manipulation, every act of cruelty, and Marcus would be there in the front row, watching justice finally be served. The morning of the trial arrived cold and gray, the kind of November day that made everything feel heavy and final. Marcus had been awake since 4, sitting in the kitchen, drinking coffee he couldn't taste, watching the sky lighten outside the window. At 6:30, Miss Gwen arrived to take care of the children. You look terrible, she said, setting down her purse. Thanks. I mean it. Did you sleep at all? Couple hours, maybe. She poured herself a cup of coffee and sat across from him. Today's the day. Yeah. You ready? Marcus thought about all the ways he could answer that question, all the fears and doubts and anger churning inside him. But in the end, he just said, I have to be. Amara appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Daddy, where are you going? He opened his arms and she ran to him. I have to go to the courthouse again, baby. Remember? For Vanessa. Yes. She pressed her face against his chest. Will she be punished for what she did? That's what we're hoping for. Good. Her voice was small but fierce. She was mean. Really, really mean. Marcus kissed the top of her head. I know, baby, I know. At 7:15, James Franklin's car pulled up outside. Marcus hugged his daughter one last time, kissed Isaiah's sleeping forehead, and walked out into the cold morning air. The drive to the courthouse was silent. James reviewed notes on his tablet while Marcus stared out the window watching the city wake up. Shops opening, people hurrying to work, life going on as if this were any ordinary day. But it wasn't. Not for him, not for his children. Today, the monster who had hurt them would finally face justice. The courthouse was already crowded when they arrived. Reporters, cameras, people who had followed the case on the news and wanted to see the ending for themselves. Marcus kept his head down and pushed through the crowd, James clearing a path ahead of him. Inside, Monica Chen was waiting. How are you holding up? Ask me again after the verdict. She nodded. Fair enough. Listen, there's something you should know before we go in. Sullivan is going to try something today. I don't know what, but he's been too quiet. That makes me nervous. What kind of something? I don't know. Just be prepared for anything. They entered the courtroom together. The gallery was packed. Marcus took his seat in the front row behind the prosecution table. Across the aisle, Vanessa's supporters had gathered, a handful of women Marcus didn't recognize, a man in an expensive suit who might have been another lawyer, and then Vanessa herself was brought in. She looked different than she had at the preliminary hearing. Someone had done her hair, applied makeup, dressed her in a modest blue dress instead of an orange jumpsuit. She looked almost innocent, almost sympathetic, almost. But Marcus saw her eyes and he knew the truth. Behind that carefully constructed mask was the same monster who had poured milk on his daughter's head, the same predator who had starved his children while spending their money on spa treatments. Judge Whitmore entered and everyone rose. This court is now in session. The people of New York versus Vanessa Porter, Washington. Are both parties ready to proceed? The people are ready, Your Honor, Monica said. The defense is ready, Sullivan replied. Very well. Ms. Chen, your opening statement. Monica rose and faced the jury. 12 men and women from all walks of life. Teachers, nurses, accountants, parents, people who would decide Vanessa's fate. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about trust. The trust a man placed in his wife. The trust children placed in the woman who was supposed to care for them. And the horrific betrayal of that trust. She walked slowly in front of the jury box. The defendant, Vanessa Porter, Washington, married a grieving widower. She moved into his home. She was given responsibility for his 2 young children, and she used that position of trust to systematically abuse, starve, and terrorize them. She paused, letting the words sink in. You will see video evidence of the defendant striking a 7-year-old girl. You will hear testimony about children so hungry they begged neighbors for scraps. You will learn that this was not an isolated incident, but part of a pattern that spans multiple states and multiple victims. Monica's voice hardened. The defendant is not a loving stepmother who made mistakes. She is a predator, a con artist, and quite possibly a killer. By the end of this trial, you will know exactly what she is, and you will have no choice but to find her guilty. She sat down. Sullivan rose for his opening statement. He buttoned his jacket and approached the jury with the easy confidence of a man who had done this 1,000 times. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard a very compelling story, but that's all it is, a story. A narrative constructed by prosecutors who are more interested in winning than in finding the truth. He clasped his hands behind his back. My client is not a monster. She is a woman who tried to love 2 children who didn't want her love. A woman who struggled to discipline children who resented her for replacing their mother. A woman who made mistakes, yes, but mistakes born of frustration and exhaustion, not malice. He shook his head slowly. The prosecution will show you videos and present witnesses. But context matters. A slap in frustration after weeks of defiance is not the same as systematic abuse. A mother who forgets to buy groceries is not the same as a monster who deliberately starves children. Sullivan turned and pointed at Vanessa. That woman loved those children. She tried to be a good mother to them. And now she sits here accused of crimes she didn't commit. Her reputation destroyed her life in ruins. That is the real tragedy of this case. He sat down. Marcus felt sick. Sullivan was good. Too good. He made everything sound reasonable, sympathetic, almost forgivable. But then the evidence began. Monica called her first witness. Detective Angela Harris took the stand and walked the jury through the investigation, the initial report, the surveillance footage, the patterns of abuse documented over months. The first video was played. Vanessa slapping Amara for dropping a spoon. Several jurors flinched. The second video showed Vanessa on the phone with Brianna, laughing about her plans to steal the children's trust funds. Girl Marcus is worth $40 million. Once I get power of attorney, I'm set for life. One of the female jurors put her hand over her mouth. The third video was the worst. Vanessa pouring milk on Amara's head. The little girl kneeling on the floor sobbing apologies. The cold, cruel words that followed. You're just a little black girl that nobody cares about. A woman in the gallery started crying. Even the judge looked shaken. Sullivan tried to minimize the damage during cross-examination. Detective Harris, isn't it true that the defendant did not know she was being recorded? That's correct. So she had no opportunity to explain her actions, no chance to provide context. The video speaks for itself. Does it, or does it show only what Mr. Washington wanted it to show? Angela's eyes hardened. It shows a woman abusing a child. There is no context that makes that acceptable. The morning session continued with testimony from Miss Lorraine, Miss Gwen, and Dr. Patel. Each witness painted the same picture: children who were hungry, frightened, desperate for help. By the lunch recess, Marcus could see the jury's faces. They were disturbed, angry, exactly where Monica wanted them. But Sullivan wasn't finished. After lunch, he called his first defense witness, a woman Marcus had never seen before. "Please state your name for the record." "Diana Cole." Marcus frowned. Cole was Vanessa's maiden name, or at least the name she had used before she became Vanessa Washington. "And what is your relationship to the defendant?" "She's my sister." The courtroom buzzed. Marcus hadn't known Vanessa had a sister. She had mentioned one once vaguely, but never provided details. Diana was thin and tired-looking, with the same sharp features as Vanessa, but none of the polish. She looked like a woman who had lived a hard life. "Ms. Cole, can you tell the court about your childhood with the defendant?" Diana took a deep breath. "Our mother died when Vanessa was 12. Our father was a violent man. He drank, he hit us. Vanessa bore the worst of it because she always tried to protect me." "Objection." Monica was on her feet. "Relevance?" "Goes to the defendant's psychological state, Your Honor," Sullivan said. "The defense intends to show that my client's actions, while regrettable, were the result of trauma, not malice." "I'll allow it. Continue." Diana went on. "Vanessa raised me after our mother died. She was like a mother to me. She worked 2 jobs to keep us fed. She protected me from our father. She sacrificed everything so I could have a better life." "And in your experience, was your sister a violent or cruel person?" "No, never. She was loving and kind and generous. Whatever happened with those children, it wasn't the real Vanessa. Something must have broken inside her. Maybe the stress of the new marriage, the pressure of raising someone else's kids. I don't know. But the woman in those videos is not my sister." Sullivan nodded sympathetically. "No further questions." Monica rose for cross-examination. "Miss Cole, when was the last time you spoke to your sister before this trial?" Diana hesitated. "About 8 years ago." 8 years? So you haven't had any direct knowledge of her life or behavior for nearly a decade? "No, but..." "And in those 8 years, were you aware that your sister had been married 3 times before meeting Mr. Washington?" Diana blinked. "What, 3 marriages? 3 wealthy widowers? 2 of whom are now dead under suspicious circumstances?" "Objection!" Sullivan was on his feet. "Counsel is introducing evidence that has not been presented to the jury." "Your Honor, this goes directly to the witness's credibility. She claims to know her sister's character, but she clearly doesn't know her sister's history." Judge Whitmore considered. "I'll allow it. The witness may answer." Diana's face had gone pale. "I didn't know about any other marriages. She never told me." "So the sister you're describing, the loving, kind, generous woman, might not be the person who exists today. You have no idea who your sister really is, do you?" Diana's eyes filled with tears. "She's my sister. I have to believe." No further questions. Sullivan called 2 more witnesses, a psychologist who testified about the effects of childhood trauma on adult behavior, a character witness from Vanessa's college days who described her as sweet and hardworking. But the damage was done. The new evidence about Vanessa's previous marriages had rattled everyone. Marcus could see the jurors whispering to each other, could see the doubt in their eyes turning to something harder. At 4 o'clock, Judge Whitmore called an end to the day's proceedings. "Court will reconvene at 9 tomorrow morning. We are adjourned." Marcus walked out of the courthouse with James and Monica. "How do you think it's going?" he asked. Monica considered. "Better than expected. Sullivan's trauma defense might have worked if we didn't have the evidence of prior offenses. But that folder changed everything. The jury knows she's done this before. That makes it a lot harder to believe she's just a misunderstood victim." "What happens tomorrow?" "Sullivan will probably put Vanessa on the stand. It's his last card to play. He'll try to make her sympathetic, let her explain her side. And then I tear her apart." The next morning, Marcus arrived at the courthouse before 8. He hadn't slept well. Dreams of Vanessa escaping. Dreams of his children being taken away. Dreams of Denise calling to him from somewhere he couldn't reach. The gallery was even more crowded than the day before. Word had spread about the trial, about the videos, about the woman who preyed on grieving families. Everyone wanted to see how it ended. Sullivan called his final witness. "The defense calls Vanessa Porter Washington." Vanessa rose and walked to the stand. She moved slowly, carefully, projecting fragility and grace. She took the oath and sat down, folding her hands in her lap. Sullivan approached her gently. "Mrs. Washington, I know this is difficult, but I need you to tell the jury in your own words what happened in that house." Vanessa took a shaky breath. I tried to love those children, I really did, but they hated me from the moment I walked through the door, especially Amara. She resented me for taking her mother's place. She fought me on everything. She refused to eat what I cooked. She deliberately broke things and blamed me. She told lies to her father to turn him against me. Her voice trembled. I know I made mistakes. I know I lost my temper sometimes. But I was exhausted. Marcus was never home. I was raising 2 children by myself. Children who didn't want me there. The pressure was unbearable. What about the video, the incident with the milk? Vanessa's eyes welled with tears. That was the worst day. Amara had been provoking me all week, hiding food, making messes, telling me she wished I was dead. And that morning she took my special milk, the one thing I had for myself, just to hurt me. I snapped. I'm not proud of it. I hate myself for it. But I was pushed to my breaking point. And the phone call with your friend, the one where you discussed Mr. Washington's money? That was just venting, girl talk. I never meant any of it. I was frustrated and I said things I didn't mean. Surely everyone has done that. Sullivan nodded sympathetically. Thank you, Mrs. Washington. No further questions. Monica rose slowly. She approached the witness stand with the calm confidence of a predator circling wounded prey. Mrs. Washington, you just told this jury that you love those children. Is that correct? Yes. And yet in the videos we've seen, you called Amara a little black girl that nobody cares about. Does that sound like love to you? Vanessa's composure flickered. I was angry. I didn't mean... You told her that if she said anything to her father, you would make sure her baby brother starved. Does that sound like love? I was trying to... Answer the question, yes or no. Does threatening to starve an infant sound like love? No, but you're right. It doesn't. It sounds like cruelty. It sounds like someone who enjoys power over helpless children. Sullivan stood. Objection. Counsel is badgering the witness. Withdrawn. Monica walked to the prosecution table and picked up a folder. Mrs. Washington, let's talk about your previous marriages. Vanessa's face went pale. In 2012, you married a man named Robert Chen in Florida. He died in a drowning accident 6 months later. You inherited $300,000. Is that correct? I don't see what that has to do with answer the question. Yes. In 2015, you married David Patterson in Arizona. He died of a heart attack 9 months later. You inherited $500,000. Correct. Vanessa's hands were shaking. He had a heart condition. In 2018, you married William Foster in Nevada. He divorced you after discovering you had transferred $200,000 from his accounts without permission. He's here today, in fact. Would you like to say hello? Marcus turned. In the back of the gallery, a man in his 50s was staring at Vanessa with undisguised hatred. That's not relevant. It's very relevant, Mrs. Washington, because it shows a pattern. You target wealthy, grieving men. You marry them quickly. You gain access to their finances. And when you've taken what you want, you disappear. Sometimes your husbands die. Sometimes they just lose everything. Monica leaned in close. Marcus Washington was supposed to be your next victim, wasn't he? But something went wrong. He started paying attention. He started asking questions. And before you could finish your scheme, you got caught. That's not true. Shit. Then explain the bank records. Explain the forged signatures on the power of attorney documents. Explain the conversations with your friend about the long game and being set for life. Vanessa's mask crumbled. Her face twisted with rage, the same rage Marcus had seen in the videos. You don't understand. I earned that money. I put up with his boring life and his needy children and his dead wife's memory. Everywhere I turned, I deserved compensation for everything I sacrificed. The courtroom went silent. Monica stepped back, a small smile on her lips. No further questions, Your Honor. Vanessa seemed to realize what she had said. Her face crumpled. She looked at the jury, then at Sullivan, then at Marcus. I didn't mean I was... The witness is dismissed, Judge Whitmore said quietly. Sullivan rested his case. Monica gave her closing argument, walking the jury through every piece of evidence, every lie, every moment of cruelty. This woman is not a victim, Monica concluded. She is a predator. She targeted Marcus Washington, infiltrated his family, abused his children, and plotted to steal everything he had built. The only reason she's sitting in this courtroom instead of living on a beach somewhere with his money is because a 7-year-old girl had the courage to hide a notebook full of the truth. Because a father finally opened his eyes. Because sometimes justice prevails. She faced the jury one last time. Find her guilty. Not for revenge, not for punishment. Find her guilty because it's the truth. and because somewhere in this city 2 children are waiting to know that the monster who hurt them will never be able to hurt them again. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Marcus sat in the hallway with James, unable to eat, unable to focus, unable to do anything but wait. Every time a door opened, his heart stopped. Every time footsteps approached, he held his breath. At 6:47, the bailiff appeared. The jury has reached a verdict. Marcus walked back into the courtroom on legs that felt like water. He took his seat and gripped the arm of the bench, trying to steady himself. The jury filed in. None of them looked at Vanessa. That was a good sign, James had said. Juries who are about to acquit usually look at the defendant. Juries who are about to convict avoid eye contact. Judge Whitmore turned to the jury foreman. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. On the charge of child abuse in the first degree, how do you find? We find the defendant guilty. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Vanessa's face went white. On the charge of child endangerment, how do you find guilty? On the charge of conspiracy to commit financial fraud, guilty. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. He didn't try to stop them. On the charge of wire fraud, guilty. On the charge of attempted grand larceny, guilty. 5 counts, guilty on all 5. Judge Whitmore banged her gavel. The defendant will be remanded to custody pending sentencing. This court is adjourned. Vanessa was led away in handcuffs, her face a mask of disbelief and fury. At the door, she turned and looked at Marcus. This isn't over, she hissed. You haven't seen the last of me. But Marcus didn't flinch, didn't look away, didn't feel anything but the overwhelming weight of relief. It was over. She was gone. His children were safe. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Questions were shouted from every direction. Marcus stopped at the top of the steps and faced them. I have a brief statement, he said, and the crowd quieted. Today, justice was served. Not for me, but for my children. For 2 innocent kids who suffered at the hands of someone who was supposed to protect them. He took a breath. I want to thank the prosecutors, the detectives, the witnesses who came forward. I want to thank the jury for seeing the truth. And I want to say something to any other victims who might be watching. If someone is hurting you, speak up. Tell someone. You will be believed. You will be protected. You are not alone. He walked down the steps, got into James's car, and drove home. Miss Gwen was waiting on the porch. Amara was beside her, jumping up and down. Daddy, Daddy, what happened? Marcus got out of the car and knelt on the sidewalk. He opened his arms and Amara ran into them. She's going to jail, baby. She's going to jail for a long, long time. Amara pulled back and looked at him with eyes that were too old for her face. Really, she can't hurt us anymore. Really, she can never hurt you again. Amara started to cry, not sad tears, relief tears. The tears of a child who had carried a weight no child should ever carry. I was so scared, Daddy, for so long, and now it's over. It's over, baby. It's really over. He carried her inside where Isaiah was waiting in his playpen. When the baby saw his father, he broke into a huge smile. Dada, Dada, Marcus laughed through his tears. He picked up his son and held both children against his chest. Miss Gwen watched from the doorway, wiping her eyes. That woman got what she deserved, she said, and those babies got their daddy back. Marcus nodded. Yeah, they did. That night, after the children were asleep, Marcus sat in his office with a glass of whiskey he didn't drink and a photo of Denise he couldn't stop looking at. We did it, he said quietly. She's gone. The kids are safe. I kept my promise. The photo didn't answer. But somehow, in the quiet of that moment, Marcus felt something lift. A weight he had been carrying since the day Denise died. A guilt he hadn't even known was there. He had failed. He had let a monster into his home. He had been blind to his children's suffering, but he had also woken up. He had fought. He had won. And now for the first time in almost 2 years, he could start to heal. 2 weeks later, Vanessa was sentenced. 25 years in state prison. No possibility of parole for 15. The judge's words were harsh and final. The defendant showed no remorse for her actions. She preyed on vulnerable children and a grieving family. She has demonstrated a pattern of predatory behavior that spans multiple states and multiple victims. The court has no choice but to impose the maximum sentence. Vanessa was led away without looking back. Marcus sat in the gallery and watched her go. He felt nothing. No satisfaction, no triumph, just emptiness. It was over. Really, truly over. Now the healing could begin. He went home and found Amara in the kitchen with Miss Gwen decorating cookies for Thanksgiving. Daddy, she ran to him with frosting on her nose. Look what we made. Stimmy? Marcus looked at the cookies. They were lopsided and covered with too much frosting and absolutely perfect. Those are the most beautiful cookies I've ever seen. Miss Gwen taught me, and I only burned one batch. Just one, huh? Okay, two, but the second one was barely burned. Marcus laughed, a real laugh, deep and full. When was the last time he had laughed like that, he couldn't remember. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that he was laughing now. That his daughter was safe and happy and decorating cookies like a normal 7-year-old. That his son was in the next room playing with blocks, babbling to himself. What mattered was that they were together. And nothing would ever tear them apart again. That night, Marcus tucked Amara into bed and sat beside her in the dark. "Daddy?" "Yes, baby." "Do you think Mommy can see us from heaven?" He thought about the question. About Denise. About everything she had meant to him and everything he had almost lost. "Yeah, baby, I think she can." "Do you think she's happy that the bad lady is gone?" "I think she's very happy, and I think she's proud of you, for being so brave, for taking care of your brother, for never giving up." Amara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Daddy, I love you." "I love you too, baby girl, more than anything in the world." He kissed her forehead and walked to the door. At the threshold, he paused and looked back. His daughter was already asleep, a small smile on her face. And for the first time in a very long time, Marcus felt something that had been missing from his life. Hope. 6 months had passed since Vanessa's sentencing, and the brownstone in Harlem had become a different place. Not different in structure or furniture, but different in spirit. The cold perfection that had once filled every corner was gone, replaced by something warmer, messier, more alive. Marcus stood in the kitchen on a Saturday morning attempting to make pancakes for the 3rd time that week. The first batch had burned, the second had been too runny. But Amara had insisted on pancakes, and Marcus had learned that when his daughter insisted on something, he would move mountains to make it happen. "You're doing it wrong again, Daddy." He turned to find Amara standing in the doorway, her arms crossed, a look of exasperated patience on her face that reminded him so much of Denise it made his chest ache. "I'm following the recipe exactly." "The recipe is wrong. You need to add more milk." "How do you know?" "Because Mommy's pancakes were fluffy and yours are flat. More milk makes them fluffy." Marcus added more milk. The next pancake came out perfect. "See?" Amara climbed onto her stool and watched him work. "You just have to listen to me." "When did you get so smart?" "I was always smart. You just weren't paying attention." The words could have stung. 6 months ago, they would have. But now Marcus heard them differently, not as an accusation but as a statement of fact. He hadn't been paying attention. He had been lost in his grief and his work and his desperate need to escape the pain of losing Denise. But he was paying attention now, every day, every moment. "You're right," he said. "But I'm paying attention now." Amara smiled. "I know." They ate breakfast together at the kitchen table, Isaiah in his high chair, between them, smashing banana pieces with his fists and laughing at the mess he was making. The boy was 18 months old now, walking and talking and getting into everything. He had Denise's smile and Marcus's stubbornness and a personality all his own. "Daddy?" Amara said between bites. "Yeah, baby." "Miss Lorraine said something at school yesterday. She said you're starting a new project, something to help kids." Marcus set down his fork. He had been waiting for the right moment to tell Amara about this, but apparently the right moment had found him. "That's true. I'm working on something called Hope Rising. It's going to be a place where children who have been through hard times can come to feel safe. A place with good food and people who care about them and help when they need it." Amara considered this. "Like what I went through with Vanessa." "Yes, like what you went through." "Will there be other kids there, kids like me?" "There will be. Kids who need help. Kids who need someone to believe in them." Amara nodded slowly. "That's good, because when I was scared, I wished there was a place like that. Somewhere I could go where someone would listen." Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. "That's exactly why I'm building it. Because no child should ever feel as alone as you felt. And because of what you taught me." "What did I teach you?" "That being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing the right thing anyway. You did that, Amara. You protected your brother. You held on until help came. You were the bravest person in this house." Amara's eyes glistened. "I didn't feel brave. I felt scared all the time." "That's what makes it brave." After breakfast, Marcus drove to a building on 125th Street that he had purchased 3 months ago. It was an old community center abandoned for years, but the bones were good. Strong walls, high ceilings, room for everything he had planned. James Franklin met him there along with Angela Davis Moore, the program coordinator he had hired away from a nonprofit in Brooklyn. "The contractors say we're on schedule for the grand opening in September," Angela said, flipping through her clipboard. "Kitchen is almost done. Counseling rooms are finished. The art therapy space needs another week." Marcus walked through the building, running his hand along the freshly painted walls. Blue and yellow and green. Colors of hope. Colors of sunshine. "What about staffing?" "We've got 12 applications for the youth counselor positions. 3 are outstanding. I'd like to bring them in for final interviews next week." Angela paused. "There's also someone who wants to volunteer. A woman named Lorraine Mitchell. She said you'd know her." Marcus smiled. "I do. She was my daughter's teacher. She's one of the reasons we're standing here today. She seems very passionate about the mission." "She is. Bring her on." They walked through the building for another hour, discussing details and timelines and budgets. By the time Marcus left, the sun was high in the sky and his phone was buzzing with messages. One was from Miss Gwen. "Don't forget dinner tonight. I'm making your mother's pot roast recipe." Another was from Dr. Rashid Patel, the pediatrician who had examined the children after Vanessa's arrest. "Isaiah's checkup is Monday at 10. Don't be late this time." And a third was from a number he didn't recognize. He opened it and felt his blood go cold. "You think you've won. You haven't. I'll be out sooner than you think, and when I am, I'm coming for what's mine." Vanessa. Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. His first instinct was fear. His second was rage. But by the time he reached his third thought, something had shifted. He wasn't afraid anymore. He called Detective Angela Harris. "Marcus, what's wrong?" "I just got a threatening message from Vanessa, from prison. Forward it to me. I'll have it traced and documented. She's not supposed to have access to phones, which means she's either using a contraband device or she's got someone on the outside sending messages for her." "Can she actually get out early? She said she'd be out sooner than I think." "Not a chance. 25 years, no parole for 15. That's carved in stone. She's trying to intimidate you. It's all she has left." Marcus took a breath. "What should I do?" "Live your life. Take care of your kids. Don't let her take up space in your head. That's exactly what she wants, and you're not going to give it to her." He hung up and looked at the message one more time. Then he deleted it. Angela was right. Vanessa wanted him to be afraid, wanted him to spend his days looking over his shoulder, waiting for a threat that would never come. But he was done living in fear. He had spent too many months being blind. He wasn't going to spend any more being scared. That evening, the brownstone was full of warmth and laughter. Miss Gwen had taken over the kitchen, producing dishes that filled the house with smells Marcus remembered from his childhood. Pot roast and collard greens and cornbread and sweet potato pie. Amara was at the counter, officially in charge of setting the table, but mostly stealing pieces of cornbread when she thought no one was looking. Isaiah was on the floor with Pastor Michael Robinson, a man in his 60s who had known Denise since she was a baby. The pastor had started coming by after the trial, offering support, sharing stories, helping Marcus reconnect with a faith he had abandoned after his wife's death. "That boy has his mama's eyes," Pastor Robinson said, watching Isaiah stack blocks and knock them down. "Every time I look at him, I see Denise looking back." "She would have loved watching him grow," Marcus said quietly. "She is watching. Don't doubt that for a second. That woman loved her babies more than life itself. You think a little thing like death is going to stop her from keeping an eye on them?" Marcus smiled despite himself. "I suppose not." Miss Lorraine arrived at 6, carrying a bag of books for Amara and a stuffed giraffe for Isaiah. Behind her came Maggie Lewis from Chelsea Diner with a tray of cookies and Patricia Gomez from down the hall with a bottle of wine. The brownstone was full of people who cared, full of love that Marcus had almost let slip away. They gathered around the dining room table, a mix of ages and backgrounds and stories united by one thing, their connection to this family that had almost been destroyed. "Before we eat," Marcus said, standing at the head of the table, "I want to say something." Everyone quieted. "A year ago, I was lost. I had buried myself in work. I had shut out my children. I had let a monster into my home because I was too blind and too broken to see the truth." His voice caught. "But you all saw it. You tried to warn me. You looked out for my kids when I couldn't. And when I finally woke up, you were there to help me put the pieces back together." He looked around the table at each face. "Miss Gwen, you fed my children when they were hungry. Miss Lorraine, you watched over Amara when I wasn't paying attention. Detective Harris, you believed us when we needed someone to believe. Pastor Robinson, you reminded me that faith isn't about understanding why bad things happen. It's about trusting that good can come from them." He raised his glass. This family was almost destroyed, but because of all of you, we survived. And now we're going to do more than survive. We're going to thrive, and we're going to help other families do the same. To hope rising. To hope rising, everyone echoed. They ate and talked and laughed late into the evening. Stories were shared. Memories of Denise, hopes for the future, plans for the center. At 9 o'clock, Amara tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Daddy, can I show everyone something? Of course, baby, what is it? She disappeared upstairs and returned a moment later with a large piece of poster board. She had been working on something in her room for weeks, refusing to let anyone see until it was finished. I made this for the center, she said, holding up the poster. Miss Lorraine helped me with the words, but the pictures are all mine. It was a painting of a house with an open door. Inside the house were figures of all sizes and colors holding hands. Above the door, in careful letters, were the words, Family is where no one is left behind. The room went silent. Miss Gwen wiped her eyes. Pastor Robinson bowed his head. Miss Lorraine put her arm around Amara's shoulders. Baby girl, Marcus said, his voice thick. That is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. It's for the kids who come to the center, so they know someone cares about them, so they know they're not alone. Can I hang it in the main room, right where everyone can see it when they walk in? Amara beamed. Really, it's going to be the first thing they see, a reminder that no matter what they've been through, they belong here. That night, after the guests had gone and the dishes were washed and the children were in bed, Marcus sat in his office with the framed photo of Denise. We're building something, he told her. Something good. Something that's going to help kids like Amara. Kids who need someone to fight for them. He picked up the frame and held it close. I wish you could see it. I wish you could be here. But I know you're watching. I can feel it. Every time Amara laughs. Every time Isaiah says Dada. Every time this house feels like a home again. You're there. He set the photo back on the desk. I'm going to make you proud. I promise. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Contractors finished the renovation. Staff were hired. Programs were developed. The word spread through the community that something new was coming to Harlem. Something different. Something hopeful. 3 days before the grand opening, Marcus received a phone call from James Franklin. We have a situation. Marcus's heart dropped. What kind of situation? Vanessa's attorney filed an appeal. He's claiming the evidence was obtained through illegal surveillance and that her confession was coerced. Can he do that? He can try, but it won't work. The appeals court has already reviewed the case. They rejected every argument. I just wanted you to know before it hits the papers. So she's not getting out. Not a chance. Her attorney is grasping at straws. This is his last attempt to justify his fee. Marcus exhaled. Thank you, James, for everything. Don't thank me. Just keep doing what you're doing. That center is going to change lives. That's thanks enough. The grand opening of Hope Rising was held on a Saturday in September. The building was transformed. Bright colors everywhere. The smell of fresh paint and new beginnings. In the main room, Amara's painting hung on the wall, the first thing visitors saw when they walked through the door. The turnout exceeded all expectations. Community members, local politicians, reporters, and most importantly, families. Parents with children who had been through hard times. Kids who needed exactly what Hope Rising was offering. Marcus stood at the entrance greeting everyone who came through the door. Welcome to Hope Rising. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad you could come. At noon, he took the stage for the dedication ceremony. 2 years ago, I was a man who had lost everything. My wife, my connection to my children, my hope. I was so lost in my grief that I couldn't see what was right in front of me, and because of that blindness, my children suffered. He looked at Amara, who was sitting in the front row with Isaiah on her lap. But my daughter taught me something. She taught me that even in the darkest moments, there is light. Even when you're scared, you can be brave. Even when everyone around you fails, you can still hold on. He gestured to the room around him. Hope Rising exists because of her courage, because of her love for her brother, because she never gave up even when she had every reason to. This center is dedicated to children like her, children who need someone to see them, someone to believe them, someone to fight for them. He raised his voice. Today we open our doors, and from this day forward, no child who walks through those doors will ever feel alone again. That is our mission. That is our promise. That is Hope Rising. The room erupted in applause. After the ceremony, Marcus walked through the center, watching families explore the space. Children were already in the art room, painting and drawing. Parents were talking to counselors. The kitchen was serving hot meals. Angela Davis Moore appeared at his side. "We're at capacity for today, and I've already got a waiting list for our programs. Word is spreading fast." "Good. That's exactly what we want." "There's someone here to see you. She says she's been waiting a long time." Angela pointed to a woman standing near the entrance. She was elderly with silver hair and a cane, her eyes fixed on the painting of the house with the open door. Marcus walked over. "Can I help you?" The woman turned. Her eyes were filled with tears. "My name is Margaret Chen. I think you know who I am?" Marcus recognized the name immediately. The widow from Florida, one of Vanessa's earliest victims. "Mrs. Chen, I didn't expect to see you here." "I read about what you're doing, what you've built. I had to come see it for myself." She looked around the room. "It's beautiful, more beautiful than I imagined." "Thank you, but I don't understand. Why come all this way?" Margaret took his hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Because I spent years blaming myself. Years thinking I should have seen through her lies. Years wondering if I was stupid or gullible or just an old woman who deserved what happened to her." Her voice trembled. "But then I read about you, about your children, about what you're doing here, and I realized something." "What?" "That the shame doesn't belong to us. It belongs to her. We weren't weak for trusting. We were human. And now you're taking that pain and turning it into something good, something that will help people." She squeezed his hand. "That's why I'm here. To tell you that what you're doing matters, and that I'm proud of you." Marcus felt tears on his cheeks. "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. That means more than you know." She smiled. "Now show me around this place. I want to see everything." He gave her the full tour. The counseling rooms, the art studio, the kitchen where Maggie was serving her famous soul food, the reading corner that Miss Lorraine had organized with hundreds of donated books. By the time they finished, the sun was beginning to set. "One more thing," Margaret said at the door. "I spoke with the other survivors, the ones who came forward during the trial. We want to help. We've started a fund for victims of people like her, people who target the vulnerable and the grieving. We want to give them the resources they need to rebuild their lives." "That's incredible." "It's necessary. There are more people like us than you might think, and they need to know they're not alone." She patted his arm. "You've given me hope, Marcus. Don't ever underestimate the power of that." She walked out into the evening, and Marcus watched her go. Behind him, he heard a familiar voice. "Daddy, who was that lady?" He turned to find Amara standing there, Isaiah in her arms. The boy was getting too heavy for her to carry, but she insisted on doing it anyway. Someone who was hurt by the same person who hurt us. Someone who came to see what we're building. Did she like it? She loved it. Amara smiled. "Good, because I love it too." Marcus took Isaiah from her arms and lifted him onto his hip. "What do you say, shall we go home? Miss Gwen is making dinner, and I heard a rumor about chocolate cake." "Cake?" Isaiah shouted, his face lighting up. "Cake, cake, cake!" They walked out of Hope Rising together, leaving the lights on behind them. Tomorrow more families would come. More children would find a safe place. More lives would be changed. But tonight was for them. The drive home was quiet. Amara fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the day's excitement. Isaiah babbled to himself, pointing at streetlights and cars and everything that caught his attention. Marcus pulled up to the brownstone and sat for a moment looking at the building that had once been a prison for his children and was now finally a home. Miss Gwen was waiting at the door. "I saw the news coverage. You did good today." "We all did. This wasn't just me." "No, it wasn't. But you're the one who had the vision. You're the one who decided to turn your pain into purpose. Don't sell yourself short." Marcus carried Isaiah inside while Amara stumbled in behind him, still half asleep. "Bath time," Miss Gwen announced. "Then dinner, then bed, no arguments." "I'm too tired to argue," Amara mumbled. "That's a first." After the children were bathed and fed and tucked into bed, Marcus sat with Miss Gwen in the living room. "I got another message from Vanessa today," he said. "Through her lawyer this time. She's demanding visitation rights." Miss Gwen's eyes flashed. That woman has some nerve. "James says there's no chance. Her parental rights were terminated during the trial. She has no legal claim to the children." "Good. She doesn't deserve to breathe the same air as those babies, let alone see them." Marcus nodded. "I know, but part of me wonders if I should be worried. If she might find some way to—" "Stop." Miss Gwen's voice was firm. "That woman is in prison for the next quarter century. She has no power anymore. The only power she has is what you give her by thinking about her. So stop thinking about her. Focus on those children. Focus on that center. Focus on the life you're building." "You're right. I'm always right. That's why you keep me around." He laughed despite himself. 3 months later, Christmas came to Harlem. The brownstone was decorated with lights and garlands. A tree stood in the living room covered with ornaments Amara had made at school. Presents were stacked underneath, wrapped in paper of every color. Christmas Eve dinner was a full house. Miss Gwen, Pastor Robinson, Miss Lorraine, Angela Davis Moore, and her 2 daughters. Maggie Lewis with a ham that was almost too big to carry. David Okonkwo, who had become something of an uncle figure to the children. Dr. Patel with his wife and their 3 kids. And Detective Angela Harris, who arrived late with a wrapped package under her arm. "I wasn't sure I could make it," she said, handing Marcus the gift, "but I couldn't miss it." "What's this? Open it." He unwrapped the package to find a framed newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Harlem Father Launches Center for Abused Children Hope Rising Opens Its Doors." "I thought you should have something to remember the day," Angela said. "The day you turned everything around." "Thank you. This means a lot." Dinner was chaotic and loud and perfect. Children ran through the house. Adults laughed and told stories. Food was passed around until everyone was too full to move. After dinner, Amara insisted on performing a song she had learned at school. She stood in front of the Christmas tree, took a deep breath, and began to sing Silent Night. Her voice was clear and sweet, filling the room with a peace that Marcus hadn't felt in years. By the time she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. "That was beautiful, baby," Marcus said, pulling her into a hug. "I practiced really hard. I wanted to make Mommy proud." "You did. I promise you, she is so proud." At 9 o'clock, the guests began to leave. Hugs were exchanged, promises to see each other soon. Thanks for a beautiful evening. When the house was finally quiet, Marcus carried Isaiah up to bed while Amara brushed her teeth. "Daddy, aren't you?" she said as he tucked her in. "Yes, baby." "This was the best Christmas ever." "Better than last year." She didn't answer. They both knew why. Last year, Vanessa had been there. Last year, the children had spent Christmas Day hiding in their room, afraid to make noise, afraid to ask for food, afraid to exist. "Much better," Amara said finally. "1,000,000 times better." Marcus kissed her forehead. "Get some sleep. Santa's coming tonight." "Daddy, I'm 8. I know Santa isn't real." "Are you sure about that?" She smiled the same smile Denise used to give when she was humoring him. "Good night, Daddy." "Good night, baby girl." He walked to his bedroom and found a wrapped gift on his pillow. The tag read, "To Daddy from Amara and Isaiah." He opened it carefully. Inside was a handmade card with a drawing of 3 figures holding hands. A tall man, a girl with puff braids, a little boy with a big smile. Above the figures in Amara's careful handwriting were the words, "Our family, together, forever." Below the drawing was a note, "Dear Daddy, thank you for saving us. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for being our daddy again. We love you more than all the stars in the sky. Love Amara and Isaiah." I helped him sign his name. Marcus sat on the edge of his bed and read the note 3 times. Then he held it against his chest and let the tears come. Not sad tears. Not anymore. These were tears of gratitude, tears of healing, tears of a man who had walked through fire and come out the other side. He looked at the photo of Denise on his nightstand. "We made it," he whispered. "We really made it." Shh. The next morning, Christmas Day, the Marcus woke to the sound of little feet thundering down the hallway. "Daddy, Daddy, wake up, it's Christmas." Amara burst into his room, Isaiah toddling behind her. "Santa came, there are presents everywhere." Marcus laughed and scooped Isaiah into his arms. "Well, we better go see what he brought, hadn't we?" They went downstairs together. The tree was surrounded by more presents than had been there the night before. Miss Gwen had snuck in early to add her contributions. The morning was filled with wrapping paper and laughter and exclamations of delight. Isaiah got a toy truck that he immediately tried to eat. Amara got books and art supplies and a new bike she had been wanting for months. And Marcus got the greatest gift of all. At noon, as they were cleaning up the wrapping paper, Isaiah pulled himself up on the coffee table and looked at his father. "Dada," he said clearly. "Love Dada." Marcus froze. "What did you say, what? Love Dada?" Isaiah repeated, clapping his hands. Amara gasped. He said he loves you." Marcus picked up his son and held him close, feeling the small heart beating against his own. "I love you too, little man. I love you so much." He looked at Amara, who was watching them with tears in her eyes. "Come here, baby girl." She ran to him, and he held them both, his children, his family, his reason for everything. "I know I haven't been the best father," he said. "I know I made mistakes, big ones, But I promise you from this day forward I'm going to be here, every morning, every night, for every scraped knee and every bad dream and every moment in between. You are my world, both of you, and nothing will ever change that." Amara looked up at him. "We know, Daddy. We've always known." "How?" "Because even when things were bad, you came back. You saw the truth. You fought for us." She smiled through her tears. "That's what love is. Not being perfect. Being there." Marcus held his children tighter. Outside, snow began to fall, blanketing Harlem in white. Inside the brownstone, 3 hearts beat as one. The road had been long and dark. There had been moments when Marcus thought he would never find his way out. Moments when the guilt and the grief and the fear had threatened to swallow him whole. But he had survived. They had survived. And now, on the other side of the nightmare, something beautiful was growing. A family rebuilt. A purpose discovered. A future full of possibility. Marcus looked at the painting hanging on the wall. Amara's painting. A house with an open door. Figures holding hands. Words that said everything that needed to be said. Family is where no one is left behind. He had left them behind once. He had been so lost in his own pain that he couldn't see theirs. But never again. From this day forward, he would be present. He would be strong. He would be the father Denise had always believed he could be. The monster was in prison. The wounds were healing. And the light that had almost gone out in his daughter's eyes was shining brighter than ever. That was his victory. That was his legacy. That was his hope. And it was more than enough. Marcus Washington had lost everything and found it again. He had walked through darkness and emerged into light. He had learned that redemption wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up. It was about fighting. It was about choosing love over fear every single day. His children were safe. His family was whole. His future was bright. And nothing, not the pain of the past, not the threats from prison, not the shadows that sometimes crept into his dreams, would ever take that away. Because hope is not a wish. Hope is a decision. Hope is waking up each morning and choosing to believe that tomorrow can be better than today. Marcus had made that choice, and he would keep making it day after day for the rest of his life. For Denise, for Amara, for Isaiah, for the family that had been broken and was now finally beautifully, completely whole. The little black girl who once sobbed apologies on a cold kitchen floor now laughed and painted and dreamed of a future without fear. The baby who once cried from hunger now said "Luv Dada" and meant it with his whole heart. And the father who once stood frozen in a doorway, too blind to see the truth, now stood tall in the light, ready for whatever came next. This is what healing looks like. This is what redemption means. This is what happens when love refuses to give up. Family is where no one is left behind, and the Washington family would never be left behind again.